Oh dear. Oh God. Now what's going off? Oh, what's happening here? The we have a bit of light. Everything's coming. Besides that, I'm on. I'm going to switch light on. One sec. I'm back. All my friends are coming. Sideways up. Oh dear, I can't read things. Is that better? Ah, better. Right, we can see anyway. Well, I can see a few are arriving, and while we waiting for a few more to come on, I've just turned it. My camera. Let's try that then. No. That's better. You can see me anyway, even though I don't know why it's come on the iPad tiddly toodly, but never mind. Look, before you all start, it's nice to see you all coming, and nice to see you're interested in me, and let's hope we can have a quick well, not quick, a chat for a couple of hours. But before you all start firing questions, I'm just going to chat to you for a while, just so that, well, to get things going. For a start, I suppose the new news that we can go fishing from Wednesday is good. Get the cobwebs out of the way. Everyone not start straight away, of course, but you know, we can go out if we wish. And fisheries will certainly be happy that at last they can get moving, and no doubt a few tackle shops will be able to open as well. They've not really said about that, but I assume that obviously shops will open. There's no reason they can't do one in, one out, or keep 2 meters away anyway. But that's good news, and I'm sure most of you have heard on Facebook. There's plenty of messages. So, but anyway, the first thing, let's have a quick chat about how I started fishing. And I didn't start match fishing very early. I suppose my first fishing, well, all my first fishing really, was when we went on holiday to the seaside. And I suppose when I was 13 or so, I was 12, 13, I used to go crabbing. I remember doing crabbing on a pier at Ladden-Dudno. And I suppose not quite the same, I know, but that was my first thing into something on rod and line. Well, not rod, and line, and a bucket with crabs in. And that's how I started really. I never used to go other than when I was on holiday. Anyway, we, not in Wales, I like that. Anyway, the following year I can remember we went to, you'll enjoy this I think. We went to Scarborough, and I was already got my hand line ready, and of course, if you all know Scarborough, there's a big barrier down the side near the harbour, and all the way down. And I was fishing just outside the harbour, and with the hand line, and I managed to catch a couple of pollock. I know they were. I didn't know what they were then, but they were pollock, and they'd be reasonable pollock, 12 ounce to a pound, I would think. And I was on my own with my brother. We were both fishing with hand lines, and my father came down because it was quite safe in them days to see if we were doing all right. And I said, "Dad," and they were there laid on concrete. My dad says, "Wow, you've done well there, Colin." we'll take them back to hotel and or boarding house where we were staying, see if she'll cook them for us. So we did, and she cooked them for them, and they were quite nice. My dad loved them. You know, we had a nice meal. We had some chips or whatever with it. Anyway, Dad, I'm going fishing tomorrow. That's all right. So he took us down to the where we're going to fish, and where you going, lad? Where you going, boy? I said, same place as yesterday. So what he didn't realise was it was on the sewage outlet just outside the harbour, and so we got ready. I'm trying to get my hand line undone. My dad looks over and there's turds and all sorts coming out of this sewage. My dad looked at it, immediately went green and was sick off the side. So his sick went with the sewage, I'm afraid. And you're not fishing here, lad. So that was the end of the fishing on the sewage pipe. So I was quite upset, but he took us a bit higher up onto clear water. But of course, we caught nothing there, I'm afraid. But I managed to get him to buy from a fishing tackle shop just up the road. As we passed it as we came down from the harbour, and every day I had my eyes on this rod in the window. And as I remember, it was £12 something. It's a long time, it's 50 years ago, but I can remember it was £12, which was a lot of money in them days. But my dad, I managed to convince my dad to get me one, and a little reel. It was a set like, and I only fished with it for one day at Scarborough, and then we were coming home, and I didn't catch anything on it. Anyway, when we got back, it was put away. Hi there, Howard. Nice to see you. David Atkins, Jacko. Yeah, there's a lot arriving. Meakin, Dave Smith. And then the following year, we went to, for the first time, we went to Cornwall. And we went to a place, I can still remember it, plain as day, Bovisand Lodge. I don't know if there's anyone watching who comes from down there. I was just outside Plymouth. And it was a cove with caravans and, yes, and just caravans at that time. And it was only small, but it was really nice beach, but it had got rocks. And we were there for 2 weeks, and I spent the whole fortnight fishing on the rocks with my new rod, which was a year old, but I'd not used. Anyway, I caught a few little pollock, you know, baby things. I'd already learned that you dig ragworm up in beach, and found a few ragworm and whatever, and started fishing. And over a week I was catching a few little ones. I caught a few better ones, and then a chap arrived with bread, a proper rod, you know, a proper angler, if you like, sea angler, fishing for mullet. And he mixed a load of mosh of bread up like, and it went a few balls. Anyway, and he came for 2 days, this chap. He didn't catch nothing first day, but I was fishing just to his side like with my ragworm and such, and I had a few little ones. Anyway, the second day he came and he caught 2 mullet, about £3, which for me was massive. Wow. So he didn't come the following day, and this was our last day. So Colin scrounged some bread off my mum, moshed some up and got some hot bread, and I caught one £2, which was the biggest fish I had ever caught, and I was over the moonlight. So that was a good end to the holiday. And then off we went home. As soon as we got home, Dad, take me fishing. Well, he took me down. If anyone who's speaking who knows Mansfield, there's a big reservoir at King's Mill, and he took me fishing there, which was a total waste of time. But fishing it weeds, not a chance of catching any fish. But then next day he said, come on, we'll go to Fiskerton. Now, if anyone knows, Meakin will know, and if you will, Fiskerton has always been a superb stretch of the Trent. But at Fiskerton, just below the village, there's a fence and a big iron, you're sort of 10 foot off the water. It's barriered with iron right way up the stretch in front of Bromley, the pub, Bromley Arms. And so we were fishing, like, you know, with a bomb. Couldn't float fish that far off, and I wouldn't know much else. So just a bomb on, a shot and a hook and a couple of maggots and chucking it out, not feeding anything, and I caught 5 gudgeon, because there were a lot of gudgeon in the river at that time. I mean, we're back in 1960s, so a long time ago, and I caught a few gudgeon, and that was the start. And I went with my dad every weekend for 2 or 3 weeks, and my dad said, "Oh, I don't really want to come, you know, do we have to?" You know. So although it was a nice place, you can have a nice picnic there. So as it happened, the bus stop was exactly outside of Greetmouth, and which is a little stream that runs in at the bottom of these pilings, and there's a little tiny bridge. So I caught the bus. I would, by now, I'd probably have just started work. I was apprentice engineer with metal box, so I had drilled my wicker basket. I drilled a couple of holes down in the bottom of the legs and put 2 little wheels on. My landing net handle under the lid, and I dragged that down to the bus stop with me half a pint of maggots. That is what I had bought because I didn't know no better. Caught the bus off to Fiskerton. Well, I started fishing on top of the booms, you know, 10 foot off water. And after a bit I thought, there's some rocks. There was rocks at the bottom, perhaps 1 metre wide, no more. I thought, I'm going to see if I can get down there. So crept down to this little bridge, crept under the little bridge, got my foot wet, but we managed to get under, and I started fishing there. And I went there for 2 years. That's where I did all my fishing. And I started off with my little rod, and I could float fish when I got down onto the rocks, of course. And I could see some. And Richard's joined, and Ken Dawes. Anyway, started with little float. Listen, the floats you could buy, I'll go back into that in a minute, what you could get in shops. It was terrible. But and he used to put probably an 18 or a 16 hook, I would think, couple of maggots. And I caught 10 gudgeon. Now I could float fish. And I did it like that for 2 or 3, probably 4 or 5 visits. And then one of the visits, an angler came and he sat above me. And I'm sat there like, he's got a roach. Wow, you know, never caught a roach. And anyway, this chap, he starts catching roach regular. So me being inquisitive, I crept up to him. "Can I watch you, mister?" And sat there, just as long as you're quiet, you're all right. Anyway, I watched him, and he's, I don't know how good he was, but he was catching roach, trotting down like, and throwing maggots behind. I used to think this half a pint of maggots will last me 4 visits, because I never threw any in, only one on hook. And so of course the following week it were off to the shop, bought 1.5 pints of maggots, which were great. Went down there, starts loose feeding. I caught some roach, and I wouldn't have caught many because I could only control it, rodding a bit out, I would think, and didn't know where to put shot or anything. But slowly, of course, over a period, we starts catching and building the swim, and I learnt near enough all my fishing there, and within 2 years I could catch 15, 20 pound of roach. Obviously I learnt, and then someone said, "Why don't you come on our club match?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know anything about match fishing." And he said, "Come on, do you have a juniors?" And because I'd be about 18 now, and I went with Local Inn, it was called, and it was, look, there's some good anglers in Mansfield, and Local Inn was a good club to start with. And my dad used to run me up to where the old collectors, and of course at that time, it's so different now, a lot of you young ones won't realise, but it was a bus. Kenny Dawes, Keith will know what it was like, because he used to come on bus. And we all used to go on buses, single deckers, baskets all in back and down middle, and they were well supported, because that was what match fishing was like then. There were no open matches, anything like that, and there'd be a good 30 on board, perhaps 35 at times, and off we'd go to Trent. And sometimes we'd call it maggot farm to get some maggots on the way. We'd call it Newark. There used to be a big cafe there, and it'd pull up there and everybody'd pile in and have a breakfast, and someone would cheat and get a breakfast for nothing because we're very well organised. And then we'd go into other side Newark, get some maggots, and then off we'd go wherever we're going. We used to go to Winthorpe, Gunthorpe. I can't remember Burn George, we used to go to Gunthorpe. Anyway, I fished 2 or 3, 4 matches, and I was useless really, but I once come second in juniors. And then one day we went to Gunthorpe Bridge, to Gunthorpe Weir, below Gunthorpe Bridge, on this side, same side as the pub, on the gravel below the weir. I don't actually know what it's actually called, the name of the stretch, but anyway, we were down there, topside Caythorpe, that would be, and I happened to draw below the secretary. Now his name was Jack Stone, and Jack Stone was an old guy, probably as old as I am, but he was a nice chap, and I was very shy in them days, very shy. I weren't like today, but I was doing my own thing, and I got my bank stick and my keep net. And anyway, I was fishing, and I had a couple of fish. But Jack was catching 1 or 2 above me, like. And then halfway through the match, he come walking down to me. Yeah, I could see it, Billy making. They're all here. Anyway, he come walking. Now then, lad, you're doing it all wrong, he says. Come on, let me show you. Let's have a look at your float and your shot and all this sort of thing. And stop moving your feet about in gravel. Be quiet. Be quiet. These fish, to get them to come to you, you've got to be quiet. And you will perhaps know, but it's all gravel and it's very shallow there in the side, but it goes off to about 4 foot, 5 foot, the further, rod and a half out, 2 rods out. And anyway, he shoved me float up and down, your shot's all wrong, and what you've got, and oh, that's no good, come here, you can have one of mine, and tied me an 18 on, and a couple of maggots. Anyway, then he went back, like, after a bit of instant. He chucked float in, hold it back, he says, it's going down terrible. And anyway, I ended up with £3, which I was chuffed to that I won Jodia's. And that was really the start. I mean, I was dead keen on fishing. So it went down to tackle shop, see what floats they'd got. He said, going back to Jack, he took me under his wing, Jack Dig, and he says, look, if you want some info, come round to my house and I'll put you right, like. So, next day, bush, I'm up to his house. He lived at top of Ladybrook Lane. I lived at middle of Ladybrook Lane in Mansfield. A lot of you don't know that, but anyway, he started with his floats. Look, these are the type of floats you want, explaining how to shot them. And go and make some of them, and then come back again when you've had a go, like. So, I went down to the shop, and basically, in shops, we're going back 50 odd years, you could hardly buy anything. You couldn't buy any ready-made floats. The only thing you could buy is, I could draw one. I've got a pen. There we go. Here, look. You'll see what I mean. I suppose it's not that much different than float day. Look, you could buy, if you can see this, you could buy a piece of cane like that and a cork body shaped like that. That was the only float material other than an odd French float with the same design, if you like, but smaller, right? And you could get the body and move it up and down the cane. You've seen it, and put your line through the middle, right? But these were terrible floats, nothing like today. You could buy hooks, brown ground bait, white ground bait, bits of rods, perhaps a bait apron. They weren't very much in shops in them days. Anyway, went and bought some material, and look, I was an engineer, so I was reasonably sussed on making things. So you had to varnish this cork 5 or 6 times because there are big holes in. If you know anything about cork, it's not much different. And off I went, and back to Fiskerton on the Greetmouth. Started fishing, learning, and I'm starting to really catch some fish now. Back to Jack, what do I do, And then he learnt me, no, I'll tell you in a minute. He learnt me some of the tricks to improve the way that I fished, right? And then on the club matches, I was winning the juniors every trip now. And I'm slowly getting up to not far behind the seniors. In fact, I've done a few diagrams to try and explain. But one of the things that he really told me, I ain't going to show you this yet, but was, look, here's, you've all seen this in many times, I'm sure. But floats of how to shot your float. And right, you see this one here, look. Right, the old stringer shot and a stick float, right? So he explained that. The floats weren't the same as we've got now. And I'll show you more of them in a minute or two. Just, I know many of you understand, but there's perhaps a few on site who don't understand, and you know, hopefully they'll learn. But the biggest thing that he wanted me to do was, and he explained, and I found very difficult to start with, and anybody who tries this, and look, I am going to, just so you gathered, I'm talking about river fishing today, pretty well. I'm not saying we're not answering any questions on commercials, but I'm a river man at heart. And the one thing that he told me to do was to go fishing and put a BB on the line once I'd shotted my float, so my float sunk. Get fishing with that, and I don't want you to take it off. So I thought, he says, when you put an extra shot on, that'll learn you to control your float, because you'll have to hold it back, else it'll go under water. So off I went. Fiskerton, here we go. On to Fiskerton, and it took me 2 or 3, 4 hours to try, and it kept going under, and I'm striking for nothing and all this sort of thing. But slowly the control came. You find you can, as long as the wind is not too bad. Look, anybody who goes river fishing will know your enemies is the weather and the swim you're on, whether it's boiling, whether it's flat, etc. And I'll get into that in a bit, and I hope you're all following what I'm doing. But when you look, just going back to overshotting, many of you who do river fish will know, look, rivers are vary vastly in that, look, the River Trent is what I'd call a medium pace river. It's got some very quick stretches that's deep and pull. Middle Trent is fairly even, but it's a nice, you know, it does pull through. Pole fishing, if it's a fast swim, you can only fish a third of down your peg. You've got to fish a stick float or whatever, or go down the peg. Now that which is totally different than the Avon, the Thames, which are very steady pulling rivers. And as you'll know, that's why pole fishing has virtually took over on that type of river. Unless you're fishing at Barfoot, higher up, where it does run hard, and then stick floats still are in the game. But steady rivers, you'll get away with the pole. The Trent, medium pace, certainly in the middle stretches. Not same on tidal. I mean, the Trent is a big river, and it varies. But in Middle Trent, steady. The wind is your control, and backshotting you got to learn. You'll learn by anyone who's never done it. You fish for a couple of hours with your stick float till you get into the swing of things, then put 2 or 3 more shot on so your float goes under, and that'll make you keep a tight line to your float, and you'll hold it up, and you won't be able to let it go. It'll go under. The only time you go under is when you either hook bottom or hook a fish. And overshotting can be turn your peg from an odd fish to absolutely solid. Because I'll explain later why, or hopefully so you can understand. But that is one thing, anyone learning river fishing, learning to overshot your float is a real move forward. Now, the River Severn, of course, moves even faster. That is a flies through. And the first time I went to the Severn, particularly, you know, Bewdley and that area, the Severn varies vastly, to be fair. Some stretches really fly through, and the upper rivers, Worcester and such, is quite steady. But again, there you'd fish much bigger floats, and but overshotting would work there. The faster the river, the more likely overshotting will work. Now, going back to the Avon, for instance, or the Thames, where it's steady, overshotting doesn't perhaps have quite the impact. It will still work at times. And look, river fishing is often trial and error. We all have, you get to the riverbank, every peg on a river is different. Every one. Some will flow into you, some will flow out, some will be deep, some will have rocks, some will have weeds. And when you sit down, your first hour, you're learning your peg. And that's what you have to do. But anyway, I'm jumping the gun really. Let's go back to my club. So we started fishing with local in, and Jack's got me under his wing, and you know, after a few months of me popping round there, he's pretty well told me, not everything, but you know, I'm starting to get into the swing of things myself now. And like any good angler, as you all know, as you learn, you adapt things to suit you. We all fish differently. Some will pile bait in, some will fish very steadily, etc, etc. And but by now the clubs are starting to come, and I'm really starting to motor now. And when I first started, I couldn't win an open match. I mean a club match. And then I remember I won my first club match, and I can remember now it was on Newark Dyke, on the end of a fence, and it would be higher than the crow trees, opposite the houses, at the top end, just below Hudson's Bay. If any, you know, some of you are Trent anglers, you'll understand. And I drew the end peg on this fence, and you know, I'm starting to learn what to do. In I go, and I won the match. It was an hard match. The Newark Dyke can be, in fact, looking through, I've got my little book somewhere around that I found with all my results in from 1970s. We'll show you in a minute. It's quite a laugh. But I managed to catch a chub, 2.5 pound, and 3 or 4 pounder roach, and I won the match with 6 pound, and I'm over at moon, my first club match win. Within a year and a half, I'm winning 80% of the club matches on the bus, and I'm going up to 22, 23, and I'm really starting to, you know, make, and open matches are now starting. And you have to realise club fishing was the method. I mean, in Mansfield alone, there'd be 6 or 7 buses going out to Mansfield every weekend, off to Trent, off to Neen, off to Welland. We used to go everywhere. We did. Nowadays, we don't seem to travel so far, cost of fuel and things like that. And a lot of us fish locally. But we used to travel everywhere. Relief Channel, Middle Level, we used to go everywhere. And I'm just starting to really make my way. But Mansfield AA, Mansfield, or as I say Mansfield, that was my association, of course. But association matches were the big matches. And all the buses used to go, and we'd have a match on the River Neen, and there'd be 70, 80, 90 people fishing, because all the buses for all Mansfield had come, and from Alfreton and 1 or 2 outskirts like. And the biggest match of the year was the Interclub, when I mean, sometimes on Mansfield A matches only 5 or 6 buses come, but the Interclub was the biggest match of the year, and it was always in October. And I managed to win it 3 times, and in fact, I found the first one that I won. In fact, I'll go on to this, because this is where my little book here, look, because you can have a laugh here. Look, this is the first book. I didn't know the book to start with. This is I don't know if you can read that. 1970, right? They are. Look, it's back to front to me, but I don't know if you can read them or not. But just for a laugh, look, I come second here at Besthorpe on Trent, because Mansfield Air used to own or lease Besthorpe, which is below Collingham, or around Collingham somewhere. I'd come second in the match, and I'd won 18 shilling. 18 shilling. I come second here, 4 mile bar. Is that 20 foot? Middle level? Can you remember? And I'd won £2.10 pig. Now, you've got to remember, I was an engineer, like I told you. When I started as an engineer, when I was 15, my wages for 3 years was £2.78 a week. It went up to £3.10 for the second year and £3.85 for the third year. And then when I got to 4th year, it went up to and that's only 1 year from out my apprenticeship. So I'd be 19. I was on £8 a week. Now, a pint would cost you 10p in the old 10p, which is now, is it 5p? Or is it 20p? No, whichever. Not very much, as you can gather. And you get drunk on a quid. But, looking through my book, there's some pictures there of me. I don't know whether you can see them. I'm there at back, look, laughing, tall old Colin. But looking through my book, I was third here at Coombe Reservoir. 18 shilling I won. And then, let's see what else I've got here. Oh, we're on to next year. This is 71-72. Winnings, a pan. I come second. But, very quickly, we start getting up here. And this is Mansfield AA, North Fengate Toll, North Bank at Neen. And I come third. I won £7.75 now. We're starting to talk now. Week's wages nearly. And then I won at L Lake, won £4. When we're Fiskerton, local in, I weighed £30. That's a good matches. I'll tell you a bit about that one. This was nearly the end of the season. I was winning the aggregate. I mean, we used to have aggregates and all that sort of thing with club matches. And we went to Fiskerton, and I was really wanting to win the club aggregate. There was only 2 matches to go, and look, I'd won. You know, I were up there. Let's put it that way. I'd won a few matches, as you gather. And so on the Thursday, I had a day off, and funny enough, there was a girl I knew at that time. She wanted me to take her fishing, and I mean fishing. Don't start. And we went fishing together on the Thursday because I wanted to practice. And the river had got a bit of water in, and we walked down it. This is not Fiskerton at the bottom, in proper Fiskerton straight above Bromley Arms on the proper stretch, and we'd got a club match there. And I fished maggots, and I'm bagging with fish in the 3-4 ounce mark, and she's fishing. I put her in a little bay below, and she didn't want to fish maggots, so she fished. I gave her some tears because I said you'll be able to catch one. Anyway, every now and again she'd get one, and it'd be 10 or 12 ounce fish, not a toddly thing I'll get on maggots. So anyway, after a couple of hours, she says, "Yeah, I've had enough." She said, I want a sandwich." I says, "Oh, go on then." I put my stuff down. I thought I'll have a go on her rod while she's fishing. Well, I watched her for a minute, and she's chucking floating, and it's going upstream with wind. She's still catching a few. So I took it off her, went on to tears, caught blimey, absolutely sacked. I was catching one every chuck. I thought, I know where I'm fishing on Sunday. So, you know, at the end of the day, I goes down. I'd never cooked any tears really. I'd get her a few, or I'd just cooked night before. So anyway, I cooked some more. First time I'd ever fished tears, that was. So I took them on the sun, and it's going through my head, how do I start? Because I know with tears sometimes it takes a long time. So I decided I mixed some ground bait, put some tears in it. I didn't have no hemp at that time, didn't think about hemp. And mixing some ground, I put 2 balls of ground bait in with some maggots as well, and then loose fed maggots on. I started fishing, had a couple of ropes, and got a big ropes like, you know, and I thought, I put a tear on. 18 hook, put a tear on, trotted it down, off. I thought, oh, bloody hell. Put another one on, blowing it off. I thought, oh, bloody hell. So, a 16, I put another, so I ties a 16, no tide up to then. And go, I don't know what they throw on, but puts a 16 on. First drop down, clonk, gets one. Next jump, clonk, off. Clonk, off. I thought, oh, bloody hell. I've got 14 up. Clonk, off, clonk. I thought, oh, bloody hell, what have I got? I ended up with an 8. One, and it were a gilt hook. In fact, it were gold hook. I remember it now, like a shark hook. 1 tear on end. Yeah, I've got it now. £30 7 ounce I had. That was a club record, and at that time, Severn Trent used to publish once a year the best matches, the best catches of the year, in the angling press at the end of the season. And Ted Stokes, who I'm sure you've heard, perhaps some of you won't know, but some of you will, of course, who was captain of Notts Fed for a long time. He had beat me with £31 4 so that was the second best match weight on the river that year, which I was quite chuffed about, of course. And but looking through here, I've had a gold. In fact, that match there, look, I had 3 firsts off the trot there. I won into club. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong page, sorry. Here you are, into club. Mansfield, North Bank. Peg 178. And I had £8.12 a roach and won. And there was, well, there's that many fishing on that report, if you can see it there. They needed 2 columns, there were a lot fishing, 90 or so. Following week I won up North Bank again with £13. Anyway, enough of club fishing, bit of a laugh that. And we started open match fishing. And I can see you all coming on. Bob Remington, Les has arrived. And so what I decided to do, I was doing well on club matches, and so I decided to go on a club match on Saturday, open match on Sunday. That was my plan for the following year. So went on club matches, won that one. Went on open matches, caught note. Went on club match, won that one. Come back, open match, won nothing. And we went through the whole season. I won 10 club matches, plus a load of places. I didn't win 1 penny on open matches. And I was pulling my hair out. But I know what, now I understand what I did. Because when I went on an open match, I thought, I'm going to have to fish a bit different, a bit better today. I'll fish further out and that sort of thing. And these are the things you have to learn when you're match fishing, of course. You have to go through the bad times as well as the good times. And for the first year, I never won a penny. And then I sat there at home, you know, thinking, oh, I've got to do something. I thought, that's it. No more club matches. Perhaps an odd one. I'm going on opens. Every week, I am going to crack open match fishing. And I can remember season opening in June, of course, close season. And I started going, I mean, we were all going to Fens and Trent, and mainly Fens and Trent. We went on Welland, Neen, North Bank, and an odd one on Drains and Boston and things like that. But we went along, and I remember it got to end of August and I've still won nothing. And then I went on a match at Oundle and I drew, etc. Got to peg, and I were into casters, and look, I were a Trent angler now, we're catching some fish, but I just couldn't quite crack out open match fishing. And the River Neen at Oundle, if I'm sure many of you have been, is hi Terry, Mark, Mr. Bowden, wow, top banana, Donny lad. And anyway, gets to me peg, and what was his name? Below me, 2 pegs below me, was a big bay. The river was fairly straight, and then it went into this bay and come out of it at an angle. And they were a London lad. And, I'm sorry, I've just forgot his name. But anyway, I was the lad below me. There was fish topping everywhere in this peg, and I started feeding casters. But the lad below me didn't have much idea, to be fair. But the lad below him, and I say I know him well, but I'm sorry, it's not clicking. But he starts emptying it, and he broke the Neen record with 70 something pound of bream. Now the peg below me was, as I say, there were fish topping all over, but a lot of them were roach, I know they were. So I was piling casters in, and after about an hour and a half they started to come up my peg, and I came third with £9 a roach, some nice fish. I were absolutely over the moon. The first time I managed to get him money, absolutely brilliant. So of course we went away. Cookie's saying he's loving this, so I'm pleased about it. I hope you're all not bored with what I'm telling you. So the following, as I say, it's late August, early September. I can't be exact to the date, like. In fact, it might have been September, to be fair, because it was. I remember there were a nip in the air, and Bert and Joyce opened. Now, I'd never fished a Burton Joyce match, but as we all know, they were the bee's knees matches. But of course, I'm on top of the foot, I've come third. I'm going to Burton Joyce, so I booked in, like. And my first one I'd ever fished, and we drew, and it was through Nelson Field, down rack into High Hawthorns. And as anybody who's been to Burton Joyce, yes, you can ask me that in a bit, Tony. I'll get on to that, no problem. I can see he's asking me a question about business, which I will tell you later. But I'll carry on with my chat. I want to carry on with my chat, and then we'll answer a few questions once I've got going. So off I goes to Burton Joyce, and I drew High Hawthorns. Now, on this particular day, you remember, Trent these days, we all think back at Trent being superb at that days, but I've looked through my little book here, right? At times when I won club match after club match with £5–6 a roach, and a golden day was when you got £10. Now the trouble is nowadays, commercials have spoiled this terrible. I mean, we talk £200 bloody pound, which is ridiculous. The Trent in the old days, if you got £10, you got it money, don't worry, and you probably win match. As good as we used to think it was, there were loads of matches. You only won with £5–6, £10 a fish. And yes, I'll tell you in a bit, Clive. I haven't finished my questions yet. Me thing. I'm going to chat on for a bit yet. So I drew High Hawthorns, and there were a bit of water on. Downgate wind, not a nasty wind. And of course, down the rack at Nelson Field with 2 foot on, it'd be boiling and difficult to fish. And if any of you know that area, fishing a bomb down your peg and thinking you're stuck on bottom all the time, rocks, you're losing tackle, feeders weren't in at this time, they hadn't arrived yet, and we're still in swing tip days in my hotels. And so anyway, I got onto High Hawthorns, got to my peg, and I'm on a nice peg, gravel peg. And I started on stick, but it was terrible. A real strong wind. I could only fish a rod length out on that. So I had to put waggler on. Now look, waggler fishing in water on don't work very well. Any of you will know that. But I fished it sort of 2 rods out, 2.5 rods out. Left some float out, and then held into it so I could sort of ease it down the peg. It was much better than the stick, and I won the match. I won Burton Joyce, my first Burton Joyce match. Only was £6, £5 something. But, wow, I won a Burton Joyce match. You cannot believe how that felt. Look, everybody went to Burton Joyce. Kevin Ashurst, Ian Heaps, look, people from London, Manchester, Leeds, everybody went to Burton Joyce who thought they were any good. And to win a match of that quality was fantastic. An hour over the moon. The following week, I drew above Cockerdike, if any, that's up from Grunthorpe Bridge, and the rocks go up, and it suddenly drops back just below High Hawthorns onto gravel, and I come third on Waggler with £12–13 a roach. So from then on, I were on my way. And I've won plenty of open matches over the years, I promise. Some of you will have seen my little list that is only my better matches that I class. The quality matches, look. But I won at Orton Staunch once with £68 a chub. Dave Thomas were below me, and he come creeping up the bank halfway through to see how I was catching them, because he couldn't catch. I'd got £30 by then. And I was catching in 10 foot of water, 3 foot deep, under boats on far bank. I was, that was Orton Stones. There used to be a lock, and above the lock there were all boats moored up, and there was chub under these boats. And I had a great match in it. I had £68. Dave ended up going back, catching like I did, and he come second with 30 odd. I once won again an inter-club match on the north bank of the Nene. Never ever have I ever seen had at this time seen a chub on the north bank. A bit later on after this match, I'm just going to tell you, we actually fished upstream of the north bank. When you come up the bank, which is about peg 90 if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there, and you turn right and go up the river on a little track. and I drew around peg 30. And while I was tackling, look, at these times it was stick, float, waggler, bomb. That's all we basically fished. And unless you're fishing for bream, of course. But even then, it was balling ground bait, chucking it by hand, and you fish a bomb on it. There were no feeders and swing tip. And I got to the river, and while I'm tackling my waggler up, which is what I attacked the river with there, a big fish rolled in the middle. And I thought, oh, I bet that were a bream. Because, of course, the Neen was renowned for bream. So anyway, carried on. I thought, no, I'm fishing waggler. I'm fishing waggler. So I'm setting my waggler up. Another one rolled. I thought, I'm fishing my waggler. Bugger it. I can go for them if it don't happen, like, you know. So whistle goes and starts on my waggler. And we used to really, listen, we'd have 6-7 pints of maggots with us. We were into where we really putting some bait in. So match goes in. Great. I used to have a great big catapult patch like that. You could go quarter a pint. 2 great big patchfuls. Here with me waggler. Trots down. 10 minutes. A roach. Another roach. And I'd got a guy called Brian Richmond. Look, any of the local lads who I'm talking to will know who Brian Richmond was. And Ryan was older. I was still a young man. And Brian was 10 years older than me. And one of the Mansfield better anglers, you know, he'd been a good angler. He fished with Knots anglers for many, many years. Many of them all know. And in I went with my waggler. And anyway, after 20 minutes down, it goes clomp. And I thought, oh, is this a bream? Comes up, great big chub, 3 pound. And Brian ran and said, what the hell you got there? I said, it's a chub. Chucks in my neck, next chuck, another chub, another one. After an hour and a half, I've got 20 pound. 7 pound was second that day. And which were a great match for me. And nobody had ever seen any chub on North Bank, and neither had I. But as I say, a bit later on there was some chub. They've disappeared again now. North Bank's really poor. But unfortunately, there's still some bream there, of course, big bream. And I come third last year on a match there with 17 pound on a bream. But anyway, you know, and you can see from then on, I've got plenty of stories if you want to hear them. But from here, look, I'm just going to show you a few diagrams, because look, many of you are quality anglers, I can see that, but there's plenty of people on who are perhaps not the greatest anglers in the world, or let's say learning. I wouldn't say that was a bad statement, that is, they're still learning. So I would like to show you a few diagrams I've done. For a start, I'm hoping you can see this. My camera unfortunately has ended up wrong way around. I don't know whether you see that right way or wrong way, but and my flipping unfortunately when we came on, I've got my iPad upside down nearly, or on its side, so you can't see so well. And oh, that's not so good. Oh, that's better. There we go. Look, hopefully you can see that. Now, what I'm going to say, look, this is the surface of the river. But this is a cross section of a river. I'm hoping you can see, you can follow, right? I can see it better there. So that's the surface, and this is the riverbed, right? Now, look, I went to college and I did a degree course in engineering, so I know a bit about what I'm going to say, because some of this was what we learnt at college, right? So look, this is a reasonable flow. Let's say this is a peg on the Trent with a reasonable flow on it, right? And so here, look, you see that there? That's a pebble. I've indicated that as a pebble on the bottom. That's a stone on the bottom, and this is a rock on the bottom, right? And you'll understand what I'm trying to do. But if you'll understand, look, this pebble is obviously still on the bottom, right? So it makes sense that the water right next to it and on it, that's wet in it, is also still. It can't be moving because the pebble's still, right? So this line here is not a piece of weed. It's what I think that the river is like. So what I'm saying is the actual water right on the bottom is still. Now you come off the bottom 1/8 of an inch and if there's a reasonable flow, it'll start to move. And if you come off 1 inch, it'll start to be going a bit faster. So this line is representing the speed of the flow in the depth of the water, right? That the actual flow in the water is. So what I'm trying to say to you is, on the bottom there is hardly any flow. Now anybody who's been on a river on shallower water will know, if you throw, so you can see it in gravel in a foot of water, you'll chuck maggots in and you can see them coming down, you can see them floating down the river, and then when they get to the bottom, little pebbles like that, etc., the maggot will sit there, right? And it might scoot and go another couple of straps, and then another couple of straps, and that's what is actually happens in the river. I know this happens, I've seen it dozens of times in my life, and in my opinion, generally, that is what happens in the water. So the nearer you get to the surface, the faster the water is. The nearer the bottom you get, the slower it is. And that's why on a stick float or on a float, you often in a river have to hold it back. Because when you throw bait, I mean, look, let's be right, what you are trying to imitate on your stick float is that your hook is going down the river at the same speed as what your bait you're chucking in. Now, if you have ever fished a gin clear water, like we used to go on the River Derwent, Matlock, it's clear as a bell. And you think you're fishing your stick float, you know, nicely shotted, and it's going down exactly same as what you're putting in. I promise you, many, many times it is not. You can chuck maggots in, chuck your stick float in, and your bait goes down like this. Totally different than what the bait that you're putting in goes. Now, when the bait does eventually get near the bottom, and look, sometimes when you start fishing, river fishing, and many fishing, it's all trial and error, isn't it? You look at your river, you think you know what you're going to do, you set your float up, you might not catch a fish for half an hour. Now, that may be because there's not many fish in your peg, but it may be that the fish are just taking odd bait and your hook isn't going down same as your bait you're throwing in. And you alter your shot and alter your depth until you start getting some reaction. Now, going back to the diagram, so we come down to the stone, right? Now, I've just showed you behind the stone, again, behind it, you will get turbulence, right? And this is a big rock, and you'll get loads of turbulence, right? And once again, that's why you have to hold your stick float. And as it eases, your hook eases over the snags, and particularly here, where it would swirl round there as you holding the float back, the fish know. The fish know, and I'll go on to my second diagram, which is a bit bigger. Just to explain that a little bit easier, hopefully. And I'm not going to bore you too long, lads. The lads who fish regularly, but there's a lot of people who don't understand what rivers do. And once again, this is the rock. Look, for a start, behind the rock, the turbulence will dig out the bed of the river, right? So the bait that you're throwing in will come floating down the river, and when it gets here, it'll be sucked into this, like this, so fish will sit here, always in this area behind snags and things like that, because food naturally will move into this area. And rightly so, if it's a shallowish peg or the pace of the river is quite fast, you'll get loads of turbulence on the surface as well. And that's why you see in some swims you go, or some rivers you go to, you'll see boils on the top, turbulence. And that is because there's snags on the bottom. So as soon as you go to your peg and sit there and you can see it doing this, you can guarantee there's something on the bottom. There might be 10 rocks, of course, and we've all been on river matching, I'm sure. You fish a bomb or and you're stuck every 5 minutes because it's full of rocks and it's boiling everywhere. And but perhaps that just explains to you, I hope, how actually the water goes. And I know this is correct because I've studied it at college. Turbulence is something that's natural to a river. Now, I've done a few. Look, and the reason I'm doing this is not because I'm trying to bore you or think I know better than you do or anything else. But when, in the old days, when we were all just river fishing, and that's all that we did, one of the most particular anglers who were perhaps starting or whatever, look, I had a tackle shop like this, 1 or 2 questions as well, and many people say, how the hell do you know what's a good swim and what's not a good swim? You know what I mean? So again, I've just done a couple of easy pictures, and look, this is again, if it's back to front, I'm sorry chaps, I didn't realise that, but this is the bank with Tom Harry here fishing. In fact, it might be Billy Makin. Oh, sorry, Bill. But here we go. Somebody's fishing. Now, look, as you can see here, this is an inside bend, right? Now, the water was coming down the river and it's coming in and hitting the bank. Now, usually, this will be a difficult peg because you'll put your float out here, you know, wanting to trot down, and all the time it's dragging itself in with the flow into the bank. Now sometimes they can be very good because they can be chub and all sorts down, particularly if this has got rocks down the side. You know, big fish can live in that area and you might do very well. And I'll explain a bit in a minute just about what type of float and things like that you'd use. But that is a lot harder to fish, shall I put it that way. You know, you'll end up often putting feeder on or bomb on if this doesn't produce, because it's very difficult, particularly if it's a bad wind down and at you or anything like that, because even if you fish wagglers and such, they still drag into the bend because that's a natural flow of the water. Now going to the other extreme, you'll get an outside bend. Now this is the sort of swim you dream of. Again, this chap here, Bill, is here again, look, help Bill, and the river curves away from you and you've only got to drop it under your feet and it goes out into the river. Now it may be a straight bank, but as I say, every peg you go to on the river is different, and you may fish on a bank that's straight, but you'll sit there and you'll put your float in and it naturally goes out into the river, going into where, you know, look, river fish, loads of them are happier further out. They always are, because once you start catching them, they're not daft, they start flashing, and they often move out and sit away and come swim in and take a bait, swim in and take a bait, or they move up in water where your hook isn't. They're not daft, you know, as much as we all think they are. River fish are not silly. So I've done a few more, and I'll quickly go on to this and then I'll start answering a few questions for you. And so look, I've done a few. These are standard. Look, for most people this is a standard stick float rig, right? But what I was trying to say here, I've already said about overshotting your float. Look, on a nice steady swim, particularly on the Avon, or a nice steady road stretch on Burton Joyce and things like that, you'd shot your float very similar to this. If it's a bit deeper, you might do it like that with a bit more shot further down, depending on flow. And look, again, on a river, every time you go it's a different level, so some days it's going fast, some days it's dead slow, depending on the state of the river. But you start off like that, or that'd be what most of us on a nice even peg would start on, you know, a shirt sleeve shot in, as I'd call it. But if you're in practicing and you're early in, you know, starting fishing, or you're not into fishing in river fishing in anything great. Now river fishing is coming back. I know we're all going on commercials, but there's more and more people getting a bit fed up with commercials. It's, you know, for a change, it's still nice going on a river, and once you get back into river fishing, it's more interesting than commercial fishing. You're not just sat at wrong end at lake and they're bagging down there and you can't get one. On river fishing, once you suss it out, you can catch on many pegs, so it's a lot more even. Now, there'll still be flyers, there always will be. But again, if you start off there, fish a couple of hours like that just to get into swing of it and catch a few fish, then what I've just told you, put 2 or 3, 4 more shot on, or a number 6. We used to put a BB extra on, so it really went holding, and you've got to hold the float back. That'll learn you how to control your float. Now, if it's a bit of a downgate wind, you'll have to put a back shot on, perhaps, above you, which means a shot above your float, which gives you something to hang on to, gives your float better control. But you try what I've just told you. Overshot, you can learn that. Even if you can't catch on it, overshot it, it will learn you how to keep tight to your float, present your float down the river correctly. And if it's deeper water, then obviously, look, it's a similar thing, but you'd have a little bulk and then some strung floats. And then, of course, there's the pole floats that we use now, or a bolo, for instance, where you'd have an olivette down and a few droppers. And I've only done that just as a general guide to help people who, look, for anybody who goes river fishing, that's only standard stuff. Now, the one thing that we don't do very much nowadays, because pole fishing has altered it, it's nearly all like you've got control. If the wind's bad, you can put a pole on and hold it out. Whereas you couldn't use that in old days. We'd only got wagglers, stick floats. And if winds and howling go downstream, you know, it's hard fishing. Unless they take waggler. And so this last one is a method which you didn't see very often, or nowadays you don't see very much. And again, this is the flow, and the river bed. It's a cross section again. And this is what we use to back dragging. And you know, river anglers will understand what I'm saying. And when you're using this is up to your float, and you can see the float is the opposite way round instead of that way as you'd ease it down the float. But sometimes this is a deadly method, particularly on the waggler. And that's why I've showed it. Look, I ain't showed you any other wagglers, but the waggler can often fish brilliant on this method, as long as you've got a nice bottom. If the bottom is full of snags and your float's pulling under it, obviously it won't work for you. But the idea is that you put 2'6" on the bottom. Sometimes you only put a foot on bottom, but you basically have some shot dragging on the bottom. And again, this is doing the same thing as you holding the float back. The bottom is holding your float back. And so, all the maggots that have hopefully fell on the got to the bottom, you're presenting your hook very similar to what you're feeding. Now, again, on a waggler, I mean a standard waggler, you'd fish something like this, where usually 2 or 3/8 down. You might have a BB down. It all depends on, as I say, all depends how fast the water is, how deep the water is, and what you're catching. Dace will want to come up in the water. Roach often will sit lower down, particularly feeding emp as well, because they sink quickly. Tend to keep the fish on the bottom, which is where they're easier to catch, to be fair. But waggler fishing, again, if it's a good bottom, fishing with, you know, 1.5 feet, 2 foot on the bottom, some weight down, and what we used to do in the old days, and would still work. The waggler in a lot of venues has not got quite the impact it has on the Trent. But on the Avon, and particularly at Evesham and things like it doesn't work like it used to be. Brilliant method at Evesham. And I won some money on it, I've wagglered up. But that shot there, look, you'd move up here and string it out and then fish it like a normal waggler, very similar to this. Or you can slip that shot up right under the float. So it's adaptable. It's trial and error. You go in, you catch a few fish, then they not have it. So you alter the shot, put a bit more depth on, roll it along, you'll get a few more fish. And that's how river fishing is, and you have to keep contact with it. Anyway, enough of the tutorial. Well, if any of you's got a few questions, then I can see there's all sorts of things. Then Billy always drew. Clive Branson, he's put Billy always used to draw well. Very good. And he did used to come to Bergy once, won one as I remember, when he was after Matchman of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. But I can see quite a few questions have been coming up. And for a start, a friend of mine has been asking, sorry, I've lost him, flipping Tony Vickerstaff. He used to live in Mansfield, and yes, going through what we're talking, of course, as you all probably know, John Dean was, I mean, a maestro on the river, absolute maestro. He was a good, big friend of mine. I worked with him. He was my partner in the business, and we used to go. I got to know John through Mansfield AA matches, going back to the old days. And a chap called Mount Levy, who very unfortunately has just died only about a couple of months ago. And Mount Levy used to come on all Mansfield matches, and then he brought John Dean along. Now, I got on well with Mount Levy, one of the best anglers that used to come on Mansfield. You know, he used to get him money regular, and he was a finesse angler. You know, he was, he liked to do things nice and smooth, and you know, he wasn't, well, he was a good angler, good Trent angler. He could trot down, and I watched him, you know, many times. But he eventually invited me to, you know, invited me. He introduced me to John. Now, I got talking to John a few times, and you'll find, before I start answering other questions, you'll enjoy this. John, you know, after we chatted a few times, he'd been on a few matches, he says, will you come, because he used to go fishing at Codner and Butley regularly. That were his sort of own water, because he lived at Selston, just up near there. And he says, come one night and fish with me, you know, at... sorry, I've just seen another message there. In a moment, Clive, I'll answer that. And so I went up with John and met him at Butley. Now, anybody who used to go pleasure fishing with John knows John well. He used to love to get to the peg first. So he'd say, I'll see you there at 6 o'clock, and he'd be there at 5:30, right? And then he'd know the water back to front, he'd sit on best peg, because he wants to batter you, right? That was John all over. And I used to go on Trent with him and all sorts, and he always was there. I mean, I was always late getting up anyway. And as anybody who went local know, because they used to wake me up sometimes, chuck bricks up at my window. Come on, get going on, boss. And but anyway, I can remember going to Butley with him one day, and okay, he got going. I didn't know Butley really, but he started catching skimmers, you know, and nice roach, etc. And oh, he's getting in front of me here, like, you know, but then all of a sudden I altered my shot and I started getting a skimmer every chuck in, and all of a sudden he's off box. So, what are you doing now? What are you doing? And I think he still beat me in the end, but he wanted to know why I was catching him, and he looked at me shot and all, it went back, started moving shot about. And if you were ever near John Dean as he got better and well better known on the Trent, once he started moving them shots about, mate, you knew you were in trouble, because John was absolutely brilliant at sorting your peg out. As I say, look, as I've said to you quite a few times, every peg on the Trent is different. Every peg on the Avon is different. Look, anybody who don't... The trouble is, when you walk down the River Avon, Evesham for instance, and if you don't know Evesham, you'll start at peg 1, which is about 6 foot deep, right? You'll go down to peg 3, it's only about 4 foot deep. You'll go down to peg 5 or 6, and it slowly starts getting. You've got 2 more pegs, you're into 10, 12 foot deep, and you can't tell if you don't know by walking down the river what the difference. And then the Avon is really, in a lot of places, the bottom is up and down, deep water, then it's dead shallow. You're never certain what you're going to get. Now, Trent, although it does have deep stretches, of course, it does tend to be a bit more parallel. You'll get a stretch for 40 pegs that are all sort of 4 to 10 foot, you know, 4, 6, 7 foot deep. There might be a little variation, but not too much. And then if you go into a bend where rocks are, like Nelson Field, you'll go down to 10 foot deep. But it'll be 10 foot deep for 20 pegs. And then it'll perhaps shallow up a bit, and then it goes down rack, and they're all 10 foot deep. And then it runs onto high hawthorns, and you'll get 30 pegs all only 3, 4 foot deep. And that's, well, I say 3, 4, it might be 7, if it depends how far out you're fishing. But you've got the idea. The River Avon is a really up and down. The bottom could, in 3 pegs, go from 4, 5 foot straight down to 12, 13 foot in areas. And of course, you can't tell just by looking. It's experience, and when you put a plummet on, of course. When you get, that's how you get to know. And right, I'll answer a couple of questions now, unless... but oh no, let me just tell you about John again. And John, of course, I mean, he was much more famous than what myself. But I've won plenty of good matches, don't you worry. And but John, once he got really going on the Trent, in fact, not just the Trent. About this one, you'll not have heard this, but John he was invited by Stan Smith to fish at Edgbaston Reservoir, right, in a trial. But there was some, I think it was Belgian lads came. I don't know, it wasn't, it might have been a friendly international, to be fair. It was after John had been, you know, picked for England. And he went to Edgbaston Reservoir, and he'd never been before. And next day he come back to the shop, you know, because as I say, we were partners. I've got to have one. I've got to. I said, what are you on about? He says, I've got to have a pole. I've got to have a pole. He says, I said, why? Well, you know, because we obviously, when we'd been fishing, we always had a bit of a chat to see how we'd gone and what he'd done and what I'd done. And he says, I've been next to this Belgian one. He's absolutely brilliant. He's fished this pole. And at this time, we weren't fishing poles, obviously, whereas Continentals were. And hi, John. And he said he's had £30 of bream next to me on this pole, fishing. Look, anybody who knows Edgbaston, they were on Dam End. I've only ever been down there, but it's very deep, trust me. It's probably 14 foot, right? And he says he fished on this pole, not ever such a far, you know, fairly long, but he's fishing near enough to hand, landing these bream. And I says, bloody hell, did he win it? He says, no, I won it. I said, what? I said I had £36 of roach 3 foot deep. Waggler. And that's John. He was absolutely fantastic at sorting things out, and that would have been Sockopy Street, because that's a bit like Butley. But I could tell you many matches we used to go on Trent, and you know, we went pleasure fishing quite a lot. Now I have told, look, I'll tell you this one more story, and then I'll answer a few more questions. And I have told this story a few times on Facebook, etc. But and I've got quite, look, I've got loads of stories, I promise. We went fishing. John said there was nothing on Trent. We were in Trentman days. We were fishing with Trentman, not fed, and but there were not really any matches on Trent on that we fancied with so and so's fishing crap. We'll go pleasure fishing. I want to go Shelford Challenge, John says. So I said, well, all right then. I'll meet you there at, he won't go with me, because every time I said I'd meet him at 8 o'clock, I'd be there at past. so John said, I'm going on my own. So I pulls in at Amsbridge, which is where he had to park to go to on Shelford Challenge, and trots up there, like, you know, I know John's there because his car's there. And we walk up, and anybody who knows Shelford, it's all rocks to start with, and then there's a bay, Dead Man's Bay, is the, no, not Dead Man's. So end at rocks, it comes into a bay. I'm not sure what they call that one there. But anyway, then it runs onto Shallows. Now, again, anybody who knows Shallows, it runs right from bottom at Rack, right way up till bottom at Road, virtually. So you've got 50 pegs, I would think, that's all shallow, and it is shallow. When I say shallow, you'll have, well, obviously a foot, and you've weighed out so far, and even when you go out 4 rods, you'd only have 3 foot of water. But sometimes Shelford Shallows was absolutely solid. So anyway, I gets up there and I walks up to, I can see John just round this bend, and I know that he likes to fish on this peg because we've been before, like, it's his favourite peg. So I get, are you doing all right, John? Yeah, I'm catching a few, like, you know. And he said, I ain't been fishing long, only caught me down. And he caught a couple of fish while I was with him. So I said, right, I'm going to go below you then. So I walked down, and well, I don't really fancy the bank weren't very good on this. So I went just below him about 4 pegs, round, just went round a bit of corner. So I couldn't actually see him spot on. But anyway, I sets a wagger up on the stick, like, and starts fishing, and starts bagging, like, you know. And after about 3.5, 4 hours, I reckon, well, I've got 30 odd pound. I'm doing all right, you know. I lay a sandwich and walk up to John. So I goes up to John and sits behind him. Talk about demoralising him. He was getting one every chuck. I mean every chuck. Chub, he had £100. Now look, £100 of fish on Trent in old days is phenomenal. I never had £100 in old days. I had 50s and 60s, yes, but John, he gets £100. And I sat with him in awe. His control was absolutely superb on a stick and waggler. And he'd have a few runs, he'd swap things, and then he'd have them absolutely queuing up every chuck, which I always found difficult. You'd get 4 or 5 fish and then they'd move, because that's how the river was. Whereas John, he seemed to, once he got it sorted, he'd get a fish a chuck one after other for 20 minutes. But anyway, you know, we had a good day, and we come back, and as we all know, John Dean was the master on Trent. He was the best river angler in country at that time. And it's a shame, and look, I get asked all the time, why did John pack up, and etc. And one of the main reasons was business. Look, the difference is between me and John. John was the sort of man, if he couldn't do it exactly how he wanted to do it, spot on. In other words, look, when John was at his best, he was a single man. He used to perhaps go fishing on Trent on the Thursday to try and suss it out, ready for weekend, wherever we were fishing. And then he'd come first and third on 2 opens. And I think I've told you before, he once won 3 Burton Joyce, Notts Fed used to have Burton Joyce matches from Gunthorpe Bridge right to the top of Ferryfield about 5-6 times a year. And in August he used to have 3 in 4 weeks. Sorry, 3 in 5 weeks. So every fortnight he won 3 on trot. Now to even win 1, there's 300 fishing. Incredible. I did win 1 myself. I once won 1 with £28 below Art Forlont Road, and you know, great performance. I'm very pleased with that. But John was unbelievable. Anyway, let's have a look. There's a few folks here writing, what were my favourite stick flows? Well, funny enough, I've brought a few. These are my spares, but I like John Dean stick flows. Look, we all know that many of us have got them. But the one thing I would say, look, here's a John Dean stick float. That's one you'd buy from the shops, right, in the old days. I actually showed John Dean wire stem stick floats myself. And but he was bringing these out, and as we perhaps know, John came out with the plastic, which he used to start. I used to go to John's house, and occasionally he'd say, "Come on now, I'm making some floats tonight," blah blah blah, and I'd go around, and he started making plastic bottom stick floats like this one. As you can see, look, it bends. I'll not try and break it because it's they're like gold. And he made them out of paintbrushes, plastic paintbrushes. Pull the metal piece off, stuff it up the, shape it on the end so it's a spigot, pushed into balsa, you know, etc, etc. And he started making them, and that's why eventually he got them to make John Dean stick floats, which I still like. There's dome top and there's pointed tops somewhere. Yeah, here's a pointed top. Well, that's a wire stem as it happens, but that's the pointed top. I like pointed tops personally, but if the water is a bit more boily or pacey and ripply, particularly if the wind, then a round top is better. Like that one. Okay, this is a wire again, but as I say, these are only my spares, I'm afraid. There is all sorts in here, but I'm sure I've got a round top. Yeah, look, there's a round top. And again, it's a wire, I'm afraid. But I was making wire stems, and look, anybody who's ever tried to make floats, making wire stems, you'll find is difficult. In that, you'll get your balsa, you come to shove your wire in, right, and it's cocky-eyed, and when you spin it, it's whittle, whittle, whittle. So I had the idea of wire stem, and why I'm saying wire stems, if the river is boily, turbulent, same as I've showed you, wire stems run through the turbulence better, much better than any lignum or plastic, because you've got stability. It obviously stands up better because it's metal. So I started making wire stems. The only problem with wire stems and there is a slight problem, if the fish are a long way out, because with a wire stem you can only chuck it, you know, 3 rods, unless you've got a backwind. 3 rods about as far as you can go out, but they are absolutely brilliant fishing anywhere, rod running off, things like that, and nice to run through. They sit nice in your peg, and I like wire stem sticks. But I would then use a pointed top. But you know, I've got Pete Warren's and John Allerton's, and this is a Cleggy, Mr. Clegg, if he's watching anywhere. I've got a few of you on. That's a John Allerton. Is that yes, it's a John Allerton. I think Dick used to make them. And sorry, I was on about. Sorry, yeah, I was on about wire stems. Now, being an engineer at Metal Box, I thought, how can I improve this? So I got a piece of 1-inch diameter steel, This end I drilled at quarter, so it fit the quarter balsa. Most of these are, yeah, I mean, it's maybe millimetres now, and you can't buy balsa everywhere anyway. There's no model shops, is there? But we used to buy balsa wood and wire. You sell that in model shops. And I drilled one piece of steel at one end, so I could push my balsa in. And other end, same diameter. I drilled a hole that end so I could get my wire, push your balsa in, push your wire in, straight as an arrow every time. And I showed John that, and he made the stick floats, not me. And I hope he agrees with me. It's a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. And but yeah, generally I use John Steam sticks most of the time. But of course it all depends on what you swims you're on. Look, I mean, I've got big things like, we used to fish on Burrawash, for instance, many years ago. Burrawash was a really boily river, fast river, and sometimes you'd have to fish a big flow with shots down because the thing's turbulent everywhere, but we're full of chub, absolutely full. Sometimes £100 of chub we'd catch. Brilliant fishing in the old days. And funny enough, I'll tell you, look, I'm sorry I keep coming out with stories rather than reading your questions, but a few years, Riverfest, as you know, look, Riverfest has become a very popular event for river anglers, and credit to Dave Arrell. He started this 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever, and it's grown in strength, and it's now probably it is the biggest river event on the calendar. There's plenty of commercials, you know, Preston's at White Eggs with 25 grand and all this sort of thing. But Riverfest, other than Evesham, which is still going after all these years, and fortunately I had a bit of luck there to do that a few times. And don't say luck. But Dave's brought Riverfest along. Now, I've only ever fished one Riverfest, and it was on the River Derwent at Burrawash. And I thought, I'll have a go at that. It's not the same as it was. The chub have virtually all disappeared, and no doubt there's still some there here and there. But it's funny enough, just on chub, on the rivers nowadays, look, I know they catch them on the Wye in big numbers, but you don't see any hardly on the Trent. You don't see many on the Avon. You see some, and usually the big ones now. But in, you know, when I first started fishing Evesham, the first match I ever went on, I won with £18, and loads of little chublets like this, 4, 5, 6 ounce, with an odd £2-pounder. Ivan Marks out, the first match I ever went to Evesham. I rang Ivan Marks day before I went, said, can you tell me out, Ivan? And Ivan says, well, you'll find everybody will lose feed, but they like ground, they know, let's say that ground bait don't put them off. I use ground bait. Ivan had come third the week before, and he says, but here's a tip, now and again put a worm on hook and trot it down, just fish maggot, double maggot, whatever, but now and again put a worm on. If it goes under, it'll be a big chub. So I went, drew just below culvert. If anybody, well, there'd be a lot here who know the river. I drew 2 below the culvert, which is not a good area now, but that's where I drew. And I started on Waggler, and just shows you the difference. I'll tell you what I used. I mixed a bowl full of ground bait. I put 4 pints of hemp in it, right? 2 pint of casters. I might put 3 pint. And you'll know yourself, anybody who's used ground bait and caster, you think there ain't many in there. You could put bloody 3 or 4 pint in a bowl of ground bait and it'd disappear. And I also loose fed 3 or 4 pint of maggots on top. I won it with £18, but now and again I got some worms. Put a worm on. I had 5 chub. Every time it went under with on worm, it were £1.50 to £2 chub. So Ivan won me that. I used to fish with Leicester, and so our buddies were Ivan at that time, and without any doubt that helped. And 3 or 4 weeks later, it was Gladding Masters on the River Severn at Worcester Racecourse, and I got invited. I drew between Ian Heaps and Kevin Ashurst. Kevin won it with £25, and I was second with £18. and battered Mr. Heaps below me with £14. And I came second on that. And so Ivan helped me there, very much so. Very, very good tip he gave me there. So stick float wise, you're pretty well sure you've got that. There's a message here from Tony again. River train has changed so much over the years. What do you think about it now? Is it better or worse? Well, my opinion is I haven't fished Trent very much, but last year I fished it 5 times, and it is better now than it has ever been. The river is solid. Listen, I ain't been to Burton Joyce for 25 years. Now, I fish Avon regularly. There's people on here who see me regularly at Barford and odd times at Evesham. But Trent, I mean, I was brought up on the Trent. I've fished it 1,000 times, and I've won loads of matches on there. But the Trent in the old days, like the same as I've just showed you here, loads of matches were only won with £8, £9, £10. Red letter days, Burton Joyce, when it used to really fish, we had an odd year when £20 you needed to win. But you know, I've just told you, I won one myself under just below Artfall, 4 or 5 below Artfall with £28 many years ago. But at the minute, I went on an open match there. I used to go to my caravan. I've got a caravan at Stratford on Avon, and so that's why I fish the Avon. But we weren't going, so I thought, there's one at Burton Joyce, I'm going to go and have a go. And Pete Jays had won a match the week before with £19 a roach on seed. So I did a load of emp and tears and of course 4 or 5 pint of maggots and a few casters. And off I went. And I drew below the rack, bottom end at rack really, before it went in at High Hawthorn. So it was still, well, it was about 5 to 7 foot deep, depending how far out I went. But and afterwards, Steve Roach runs the matches, good lad. And as he walked up to weigh me in, he says, this is shallowest peg round here. And I've got to be honest, I had difficult. The river has totally changed in that there's weed on the bottom everywhere. In the edges, there's weed all the way down the sides now, lily pads and all sorts. And to fish it, you have to go and put your platform in, put your box on, and fish on my platform on the box. I can't stand, no, I'm 70 now unfortunately, I can't stand up 6 hours, 5 hours like we used to do. I have to sit down on my box, but at least you can get out on your platform, there's no problem with that. And but on the pole, I kept trying to fish seed and stick. I couldn't get a clean run through, you know, I'd get a run and then it was pulling under up weed and stuck and take a few inches off and, you know, try to get a run. And anyway, 2 hours to go, I thought, I'll try wag. We used to catch wag down here. I don't know why I didn't put it out, so I put wag out. Go on ahead, a dace, of which there didn't used to be that many in the river, as I remember. You used to get spells where you'd catch and odd pegs where there were quite a few, but it was solid. Absolutely fish a chuck last 2 hours. Sometimes only, you know, 3 ounce fish, but odd uns were decent days, 6 ounce. And I ended up with 7.15 I weighed. An £8 something won my section, so I thought, oh, could have done that, I should have fished it earlier like. So 2 weeks later I went again, and I can see Cookie's asking me about gudging, and I'll have a look. £10 up all job on the outlet. Oh, very good. Yeah, okay, I'm sure you can see that too. And we'll have a chat about that too as well. So anyway, 10 days later, or 2 weeks later, right, there were another open on, so off I went. And I drew in the same area, but I drew about 10 pegs up higher up the rack, towards more towards the bottom of the rack. But I'm sure you remember, this has been middle of August as I remember, it were blowing at Uli, and I mean at Uli, 50 mile an hour. And I gets to my peg bush, hoping to get something a bit off my back or whatever, whoosh, straight in my face. I thought, oh, bloody hell, this is going to be hard. And everybody, I can see them setting up his feeders, you know, like we do. And but I wanted to fish me stick float. I'd on the open, which I have seen Candy, so on the festival on the River Avon at Barford, I won one of the matches with £20 a jump and dace, and I'd won a 15 foot, had my choice, float rod. So perfect. Down gate wind. I thought, well, I might be able to hold it out, right? So I thought, I want to fish that first. So I waded out to see where this weed was and see if my float would go down. So I cast out about a rod past me end of my 15-footer. Run it down, it went down all right. And I thought, well, it's not perfect, we've got bloody waves and all sorts, but it went down reasonable. So I thought, I'm starting on that, I'll watch, see what these are doing on feeder. So down went the back, you know, in went my platform and all that, got set and whistle goes. So I starts on maggots, trots down, fourth run down, clunk, gets a dace, and gets a perch, and then of course a reasonable roach, 4 ounce. And okay, we're decked it, but our catching. I can't see him catching anything on feed around me, so I carried on. So I started feeding a bitter hemp, and I'm still catching a few. And anyway, after about another 30 minutes, I thought, I ain't had a roach since I took that hemp in. I'll try some hemp. And it's an howling gale, waves everywhere. Puts a piece of hemp in, lays me stick in, doink, settles. Whoa, long 6 ounce roach. 6 ounce roach. It has 22 pound a roach on stick float with a howling gale. Lads all round me. After 2 hours, out comes float rods. And I thought, you're too late now, buddy. I've got 'em, mate. You're not going to beat me. And I comes 4th. Well, they actually paid 3, which were a bit guttering, but I won my section and won 60 quid. Right? So the next match, I'm there again. I draws middle at road, which I like road stretch. It used to be magic road stretch. So I starts off that starts again. Oh, you don't realise how them rocks used to get you. Bloody hell, now I'm going out of it. Going down that banking, it didn't seem nothing when I was young. Never flipping on, nearly fell in twice. But anyway, after struggling around the rocks and getting me I couldn't get my platform into start, but I eventually gets it in and gets box on. And anyway, whistle goes. Starts on maggot again, and I've got weed a rod and a half out from where I'm fishing, or at least a rod. No, rod and a half. But anyway, I'm creeping outside this rod, clonk perch, clonk perch, clonk perch, nice roach, clonk. So a fishy chuck for an hour. I'm getting a fishy chuck on maggot, but I'm fishing hemp. I'm feeding hemp a bit further out. Goes on hemp, clonk roach, clonk. 23 pound a roach. Well, look, in old days, in answering your question, Tony, as I've said to you, if you got £10, you always knew you were in money. Now, occasionally, river fish well, and £20 a good weight, but that's 2 visits, £220. And next match, the river's completely. The first match I forgot to mention. The first match when I had £20, wind in my face, there's 2.5 foot of water on. But the river is totally. Rivers are totally different now. They don't colour up like Trent. You'd be chocolate brown in old days. It was still gin clear, caught on hemp, with 2.5 foot in. Now the second catch, the river were back to normal now. 2 weeks we'd had a, only odd shower. It had gone back to normal. The next match, the river was dead low, and I mean dead low. No flow on road at all. And I drew bottom at road, MPEG actually, which I thought, well, I've got a good chance on MPEG. So starts off. Wind weren't perfect for stick. I could fish it, but it was a little bit down at you, and I couldn't control it superb, but fished it for half an hour, never had a bite. Puts it down, tries waggler. Fishes waggler, never had a bite for another half an hour. I thought, bloody hell, now we're not into touch. I'll try bolo. I've got bolo. Look, we fish long rods nowadays, and I've got one up. Here now it goes on bolo, goes down, peg, clonk, get a dace. Clonk, got a dace. Which, 3 gram this is. Which I thought, well, I must be able to catch it on wag. Puts it down. Went on wag, couldn't get a bite. No touch. Puts it down again, chuck bolo in, clonk dace. Now it weren't hectic, not for a minute. I ends up with £3.12, and I thought, off at MPEG. Well done, Mark. Have I ever built a floating raft to catch perch under? On canals, perhaps. Not on Trent. Anyway, I asked £3.12 and I thought I hadn't done so well. But anyway, scales come and he said, you got out, Colin? I says, yeah, I've got a few. £3.12. I says, well, not so good. What's one saying? He says, nobody's weighing in for 6 pegs above you. And that shows you what the river can be like. I mean, I'm telling you, it's trial and error. And you have to sort, every peg is different. The river this time was totally out, no flow. It was, the fish just didn't want to know, because river fish like a flush through. You get a flush through, it can go from an odd fish absolutely solid 2 days later once it starts finding. And anyway, I ain't got nothing on next day, and I'm in Rivendell Club, and it's on, they've got a match at Road Straight, so I thought, well, it's hard, but I'm going up road. I like Burton Joyce. So I went on road, and I drew my section the day before had been won, again, about middle at road, where I had that 23 pounder roach. So I draws. There's not many of us there, to be fair, a dozen of us, that's all. So it was more like a pleasure. We've all got 3 pegs, no problem. And but anyway, I draws middle at road, approximately where the my section had been won. So and wind had turned a little bit. It was just slightly upstream, so you could make stick float talk. So I starts fishing on stick, and I could chuck it 3 rods, no problem. 5 number 4 stick, and it's quite deep. It's probably 10 foot, I would think, or 8 foot, something like that. So I'm going down like maggots, you know. I'm fishing maggot, loose feeding maggots, just in front of you. You don't fish on Trent or most rivers. You don't feed upstream. If you feed upstream, particularly if you're fishing maggot and you always feed downstream. Maggots at the absolute worst in front of you. If you've got loads of room, feed maggots downstream as well, because fish like to come through the bait and they go slightly above you, and you'll catch a lot of fish running into your bait. So I'm loose feeding anyway, and I can make this float do anything, this stick float, and do anything with it. Hold it back, let it run. 40 minutes, never had a touch. And I can hear them shouting, you had a bite, yeah, you had a bite, yeah, you know, and I hadn't had a touch. And anyway, after 40 minutes, after blow, it goes under, clunk, and it's a proper fish. Now look at Burton Joyce now, look, something that you never used to get. They're catching odd perch, 3 pound, and loads on them. You know, there's plenty of pound fish. Why that? I don't mean you get one every chuck. There's loads of perch in 4 or 5 ounce, and you get an odd pounder. And I've already, the match before when I had 23 pound, I had 3 perch, which must have knocked a pound and off. But anyway, this fish goes out to the middle, and I'm on 0.1 bottom like you do, 20 whisker bob, single maggot, double maggot, I don't know, just alternating. Anyway, it's coming back, and I'm thinking, oh, this is a big perch. It's not a barber hotels, it has zoomed off. And I've got to try and keep it up, because it'll get to this weed and it'll bloody get into weed, I know it will. And I'm trying to keep my rod up with my 15-foot rod, like, you know. Anyway, it comes in and down he goes, bit me in this weed. So, oh God, I've had him on bloody 5 or 6 minutes. I'm cussing and bloody swearing. Because thinking, oh, I'd have got it money with that alone, because I can still hear them all shouting, I ain't done a bite, I ain't done a bite. Because the river is really out of sorts. Anyway, I carries on just for a bit longer. I'll try Bolo, because that's what I caught on yesterday. Chucked it in. First run down, clunk. Oh no, tell a lie. Sorry, I ain't got to Bolo. Carried on, I'm still swearing and blinded for another 10 minutes. And then I chucked my stick in, laid it. You can do it perfect. Just lay your shots in nice, and it's just settling. It's just settling, and it's just sort of, you know, toddling down. And it didn't go under, but it sort of, you know, did a bit of that like. And I thought, oh, bloody hell, another big, Christ, I don't think. A bream, 6 pound on single maggot. It were a great dog, honest. But there's no flow up river. So, you know, played it nice and steady, kept trying to get down it weed, but I kept it. Anyway, I grew a little spoon net for roach. I could only get its head in. Anyway, I managed to get it, and we pulled it in like, and hooked it in big wind net. And, feel a bit better now. I can still hear him saying, I don't know, yeah. I thought I have. So, anyway, I was a bit long, not stick, nothing. So I thought I'd try Bolo. In Bolo goes 3 gram. Olivet about, well, you can't see on that, 18 inches, 2 foot front, and then 2 or 3 droppers like. And it's going down. First chuck in, clunk, dace, just like day before. So I has 40 minutes on this light, catching a few, not dace, you know, but I'm catching, steady. Can't hear anybody else catching. And it goes right to the bottom of my peg, goes on the clunk. I thought, no, another brick comes up, rolls on top. It were £8. I'm not kidding. It was like that across its head, right back of its head. It was massive, and I couldn't get £6 in the net, and I hadn't changed my net. But it took me ages to get it in net, but I managed to get it in my net, and I thought, well, I won't match now. No, I have. So, but anyway, I carried on. I ended up with £22. So that's 4 trips, 3 20s. So, answer to your question, Tony, is the Trent better or not? It is solid. Absolutely black with fish. In that way, but you've got to catch it right with the river level, of course. You get it where there's a nice flow, bit of pace. Sometimes, but it is a bit different. Sometimes the roach feed, sometimes they don't. But the point is, there's that many dace there. If the roach don't feed, you catch dace. On this, the time I had £23 a roach in the middle of the road. The guy on the peg below the outfall weighed £34 of dace and roach. He absolutely sacked on whip with dace for halfway through match. Then he put a bolo on and caught on tears, and he had £34. So listen, that's a phenomenal weight. That's a brilliant weight, and I can't wait for Burton Joyce again. Let's put it that way. Now, Cookie's put here, remember the gudgeon explosion, and Pete Palmer being the first man to win an home with £10-ish of all chub on the outlet. What else has he put? Just see, it says see more. I can't read that. Sorry, I can't see any more, Cookie. Well, again, Pete Palmer, I mean, our fish were not fed when all the great anglers were there, of course. Johnny Malt, Boris, Ted Stokes, Pete Palmer, Roy Tulson, Deanie, of course, myself, the Red Man, Jan Porter, a great team. Loads more. The problem was there were that many good anglers in it, hard to get it team, and without any doubt, I mean, look, they won the Trent National, as you know, with resounding points, still best ever. And I learned a lot off of them anglers, of course, be fishing with them every week. You know, and it's a shame. River fishing had, I mean, look, going to the river, let's talk about the river and what happened. Look, you might look at, look, for instance, the matches I've won. It was absolutely brilliant up to the middle of 1990s, and then all of a sudden, and I can explain what I think happened to the river, or the rivers, they privatised the water industry. Now that was a massive change. They privatised the water industry, money came into the business, and look, all the sewage cleaning processes, look, you used to probably know, you drive past and go, oh God, what a stink, like, you know, because they were all 90 bloody years old. And of course, when they privatised it, they looked at updating everything, and they totally, sounding great and full of fishing as always, still bonkers. Well done, Keith. I like that, mate. Yeah, you're not far wrong, of course. But they changed the water industry, and they started cleaning the water chemically. Now, again, going back to the very old days, you youngers not bloody know, but the river was boiling hot in the winter. That's why it used to fish really well in the winter. In the summer, because of the heat from the power stations, it didn't particularly fish very well. The fish would probably spawn, and it was a real struggle sometimes, because the water would be too hot. Now, as it got into autumn, because the power stations at that time just used to pile it into the river, it used to steam. Look, it used to absolutely steam, and I don't know how many of you lads can remember, but we used to say, look, where I live in Mansfield, we used to drive towards Nottingham. Say we're fishing at Burton Joyce again, for instance, you'd get 2 miles from the river, you couldn't see. Steam, it was that thick, you couldn't see that far in front of your face. there was many a time you'd get to the bank, set up, you couldn't fish further than a rod length out because you couldn't see the float. That's how steamy it was, because the water used to come from the power stations, absolutely red hot. And in the winter, when it was cold, you used to put your hands in water to keep your hands warm, dry them off, you'd be off again for another hour. Well, of course, eventually they introduced laws. They got to put the water back in within a few degrees of what they took it out. And yeah, I'll tell that one in a minute, John. That's a good one. And but going back to then, eventually the river, I mean, it was coloured in the oil. The water was always colour of that look. Chocolate brown. It used to have a chocolate tinge all the time in the old days. Now, when they privatised the water industry, they started, as I said, they changed the way that they cleaned the water, and then they slowly, well, when they first started doing it, I don't know. Look, I can't tell you exactly what they used to do, but they used to. We'd start fishing some matches. We'd go to, again, Burton Joyce. We'd start fishing. Water's clear, right? And you think, oh, you chuck your net in and look to see if any filament used to come into your net, because when they privatised it, sometimes your net, well, not sometimes, a lot of times, your fish would your net rather would start filling up with, and the holes would start filling up with filament, and when you end a match, you'd check it, a cloud would come off it, right? And you'd start fishing a match, and you start perhaps catching an odd small roach and whatever, well, or better roach perhaps, if you were lucky, and then all of a sudden the water would go that colour. I mean, it had cleaned up, like I said to you. All of a sudden, it'd go brown. Nobody on the match would get another bite. Not a touch. So you'd perhaps fish for an hour and a half, caught a few fish. We're all walking about after 3 hours because nobody can catch anything. Some matches you get there were that coloured when you get there, and £1.2 would win it. Now, this happened on the Trent, which obviously I fish regular clockwork. But I used to, you know, after my initial wins on the Avon, I used to start going on Avon. And I thought, well, Avon's, first match on Avon's, I'm going on Avon next week, that'll be better. I got there and I drew 4 above the bridge. Now, at that time, in the old days, 4 or 5 above the bridge, that was a very, very good roach area. It's not so good nowadays. I don't know why, it's altered. I gets there, it was chocolate brown, I had £1.2. It was absolute rubbish. The rivers just absolutely went rubbish everywhere you went. There might have been an odd river, of course, that was still all right, but it really spoilt river fishing. And within 2 or 3 years, everybody said, I'm fed up of river fishing. And it went from, look, the Trent, you could, there were an odd time when decided to go pleasure fishing. You start, say, at Newark. We'll go to Winthorpe, let's see if we can go at Rack. You go down there, matched up. We'll go on Dyke, go up to Dyke, matched up. We'll go to Gunthorpe, matched up. We'll go to Shelford, matched up. You'd end up on Embankment. That's the only place you could get in. With it, when this started and they privatised the water industry, within 2 years, you could not see an angler on the river. And it's been like that since. It's only this last 2 years that any quantity of anglers, they've been having a few matches on Dyke, and some people might know better than me. Look, as I say, I've been fishing Avon regularly again for the last 6-7 years, and I haven't fished a Trent. So if I'm wrong, then bear with me, chaps. But yeah, Wayne, Ian Boyd, and but that is what happened, and it just finished river fishing. And in my area here, very, very few people, they're all carp bananas. And look, I had 8 years where I fished nothing but carp matches. And like John Chapson here's talking about when I used to go to Whiteacres, and he's saying about my puller kit. And I can tell you that little story, and I can tell you why. Because I was the first man that ever used elastic pulling it. And if you don't think I'm right, I'll tell you. We're starting. Look, the first matches, commercial matches, in England was run by Ian Eaps at Shillermill Lakes in Looe. And he tried to run a festival. We were all still fishing rivers at this time, but he tried to run a festival at these Shillermill Lakes. Now, Shillermill Lakes had got 3 lakes. Right, a top, middle and a bottom. obviously. The middle lake was great fishing, full of carp, small carp, up to £10. But I'd never caught a carp in my life. There were none in Trent, never caught one in rivers, nobody ever did. But Ian rang me, and I knew Ian, and he said, look, I'm trying to run this festival, are you interested in coming? Like? And I said, let's holiday, Lou, my missus will like it down there. Go on, I'll come. Well, he tried to get a few, and he only got 16 people that would want to come. So he rang me up and says, Colin, I can't run it, mate, I just can't get enough people to go. So that was the end of that one. Didn't think note about it. Following year, he rang me again. He says, are you still up for it? And I says, oh yeah, I'll come if you can get enough. Like, well, he got 30 anglers. He managed to get 30 interested. And out of them 30, I still fish that came. Adrian Marshall, Tommy Pickering, myself, Ray Nimmo, who some of you won't know perhaps. But look, 30 of us got there, and went down to Lou, and Lou's a nice place, and it was nice to go, and Ian organised all the boarding houses and everything like that, and we stopped just above looking down on the harbour there, and then Shillermill was a few miles inland, not far, only sort of quarter of an hour, as I remember, and so we got to Shillermill Lakes. Now, I'll get on to the story, John. But I need to tell them exactly a little bit about the lakes. Look, the top lake, when we got there, we didn't know nothing about the lakes or anything. And you've got to remember, we're roach anglers. We've got £3 line, bayer line, 1.1, 1.7, 2.6. That's what we used, £3 main line usually. Okay, we'd have some spools or everywhere if we needed it, but that's what we all went down, because we'd never caught the carp, none of us. And so we get to this lake, and top lake, what size? It'd be similar to Beardy's size, if you like. Might have been a bit bigger than Beardy's, not a lot. A dam all at one end, and it narrowed off to the top end, and a stream ran in, right? So good pegs were 120 on other side. There were 20 pegs round each lake. Oh no, they wouldn't. First match, only 30 going. So there'd be only 10 of us round. But we found the top lake, the only thing that were in top lake were an odd eel, and I mean an odd eel. No roach, not like that. But the carp, there was an odd carp, a few carp. Look, it weren't nothing like the commercials we fish. But the fish were all £6 to £10, which to us, when we were roach fishing, were monsters, of course. But we could see odd ones on far side. That's where they generally live. This bank, there weren't many carp on this bank. You'd see them swimming on the far bank, odd and down dam wall, and up to this peg 20. Peg 20 on the other bank, ended up flyer. So we fishes it. I blanked off. I drew on this side, never had a bite. As did most of on the lake. There were a few bigger carp hooked, and about perhaps 4 people caught a carp first day. So that's a bloody disaster. Second day, went down onto the middle lake and never caught a carp. So I thought big fish, they'll be on bottom. So we all know that they live very much up in water if it's hot. And it were hot. This is in middle of summer, of course. So we'd only got maggots, bit of corn. That's all we all fished. So starts loose feeding. In we goes on waggler. On drop this, I gets a bit of a bite, misses it. I thought, well, chucks in again, On drops, and I fouls up someone to a monster that shot off to the other bank and went into weeds on the other bank. I thought, freaking Nora. The guy to my right's fishing on a whip. Float goes on the clonk, zoof, he's gone. I thought, flipping that. Well, before long, I end up fishing 3 foot deep, with strongest hook length I've got on, and I end up weighing £20. And I think I come third on lake, actually. And playing these carp, try playing carp, you'll know, when you catch them on 0.1 in middle of summer, they swim around for about 2 hours before you manage to land one. And that's how it was. And we're all same, because none of us had any experience of catching carp, virtually. And but anyway, I dragged a few quid there, and then we went out on bottom, and it was totally different. So first year, that went first year over. I did win a few bob and a few. He'd got loads of prizes. I mean, to be fair to Ian, he'd got plenty of prizes, rods and keep nets and all sorts, and I won a few bits and bobs like. So we come back. The following year, they were queuing up to get in, and there were 60 of us, right? So our draws. Well, look, it might have been third series. I can't remember, but like John as saying, because he would have only seen it when I arrived at Whiteacres, because John didn't come to Shillermill. And so our draws is peg 20. Now, to explain what this 20 were like, as I say, it narrowed up. So peg 1 is opposite me, only, what, 30 yards away at the most. But they used to catch on this 20. There was a big tree to your left, right? Only tree on the bank that overhang the river, you know, like they do. And it had got 2 stumps there, and there were always fish topping under this bush. But you've got to remember, we haven't got the tackle we had today. We'd got 8 elastic. That was the biggest any of us had got. So when you hooked them, if it were £10, you're in trouble, because obviously out they go. Everybody's trying to catch them on rods and reels or bombs, but this lake were deep, so if you drew at the bottom end, usually everybody were fishing wagglers, or down the side, of course, with corn or something like rod and reel. Anyway, this peg they catched outside, up towards the stream, and there's a little bit of a blackberry bush. So I start feeding corn, because that's what they were catching on, and I'm late, you know, sat there with my float with 2.6 bottom on, heavy as we used to fish heavy. What a joke. 2.6 bayer, 18 hook and a piece of corn on, right? So it goes an hour and a half, never had a touch. I thought, bloody hell. Out it blew, down it goes, clunk. Backwards, you know, I can play this out, you know. So I plays it for 5, 6, 10 minutes sort of thing. And then all of a sudden it says, I'm going to this tree and this stumps. So of course it goes past me. Oh, look, we've all been there, I'm sure. Oh, gives it a bit, gives it a bit, gives it a bit, gives it a bit. Bang, it's in the flipping bush, does me. Oh God, I've sat there an hour and a half for a bite. So, sets up again. I put a 3-2 bottom on. Put a 3-2 on. In again. Waits ages for a bite. Another hour nearly. Kept dripping it in. Boof, another one. Right, this one's not going down there. I'm not having it down there. Playing it, playing. Oh, no. Bang. Does me again. Oh, Christ. What do I do now? What do I do now? So I sat there a minute. I thought, this is terrible. And I thought, I'm going to... Anyway, eventually I put it set up again. I fished another half an hour. Never had another bite. And I thought, they're rolling under this tree. I mean, look, an absolute flyer under this tree. And you can reach it with your pole, but we've got no gear. We've only got elastic. You can't cast under it because it's all overhanging. So I thought, well, I'll have a go with elastic then. Now, anybody who knows our shop, which many of you won't, but we used to be into canal fishing as well. We used to go Trent and Mersey and things like that. And in the old days, people will know this, the older ones, you used to have your pole. When you put it through the middle, the poles then it were not good through the top sections, and the elastic used to hang. You know, you'd catch one and it used to hang, and you'd have to be bloody pulling your bung or whatever you're doing. So at our shop, we used to ring rod rings down outside, right, down for your top 2, and then when you put your elastic through it on a swivel and then to a stompo, it always used to come back. And loads of folks used to come in shop. We set me top kit up like that, you know, and we did loads because they're only fishing on canal for gudgeon and roach and things like that. Let's just see what about when you showed me how to fish meat at the bottom of the rack in the match. Bet you can't remember, and you might be right there, Trev, and we can go on to that in a minute. But anyway, going back to Shillermill. So I gets this top kit out and I thought, I'll have to have a go. Now look, it's not very deep. I can see him rolling. I thought, well, no, I don't need a big float. So I put a dibber on. £4 main bait, a Maxima or something. £3 hook length. Right? Zoom, 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 goes under this bush. Double maggot. Pulls it under this bush. On drop, it goes bump. Whack. Snap. Lost all lot. I thought, oh God. Set it up again. Another little dipper. Andre goes, zoom, snap, lost all lot. What a nightmare. What a night. We've got 8 elastic. What the hell can we do? What can I do? What can I do? I'm thinking, there's an hour and a half to go. I've got no. I ain't got nothing in net yet. Up 4 carp, lost them all. But they were big carp, you know what I mean? You appreciate that it's not same as today. You lot have all got years of experience of catching bloody big carp with proper stuff. And we got nothing to land out like that. So what can I do? Well, I, as you know, are in business. And we used to sell Ace Elastic. Can you remember that? Look, loads of folks used to use Ace Elastic on Trent. Alt Knots lads used to use it. Jan Porter sold it in his shop. He said it was the best elastic he ever had. And but we actually knew where to buy it, and we used to wind it ourselves. And but I'd got one with loads of elastic on, right, which I'd just saved in my thing. I looked in my bag and I thought, there's a full winder there. So I put Stomford at one end, took it through rod rings, and took it to the end of my 10-metre section, right? Turned it over and taped it to my 10-metre section, right? Puts 2 maggots on, went underneath, whoosh, held my pole out, it went to damn wall at the other end. And everybody's picking it out water. It's a white piece going from one end of the lake to other. And trust me, I'm not kidding. Folks said, friggin' hell, look at that elastic. Anyway, I had no idea I'm going to land this fish. Of course, because I'd never done this before. So anyway, I just pulled on and I thought, well, 10 minutes, it's still on. And it starts coming back like. And then I suddenly thought, fly fishing. Because we used to go fly fishing and you only pull line. So I get so that elastic, pulls it back, comes down to the top section, bosh, 8-pounder. Wow, I've got this fish like. So I'm chuffed to death, I've got this fish. Anyway, I catches 4 and weighs 30 pounds something, and wins lake easily then. I mean, these are all it last hour and a half. And that was the start, and I fished that for, John Chapman's just said to me, tell him about it. I fished it at Whiteacres. And look, I'll just, a quick get, I can see there's quite a few questions coming up and I will tell you in a minute. But I went to Whiteacres with it and folks were a bit astounded because, of course, when Whiteacres first opened, the lakes weren't absolutely, and this area, it was only just being built. It dug the lakes out and they're only a year and a half old or something like that. And we used to fish on Pat's Pool, as it is now, where specimen fish are. And it used to, it's altered now, but the lake as you go down the lane with Pat's Pool on your left and Erie on your right, I'm sure many of you know Whiteacres, there used to be an arm that on Pat's Pool that used to go around the back. Well, I drew on this piece on the sort of, not round the arm, but sort of on the bit that goes nearly round the arm. And I spoke to Joe Roberts, and Joe had fished it the day before. And Joe said to me, Colin, it looks absolutely gorgeous on Far Bank. Forget it, fish down track. The fish are down the track. So, of course, it gets to the peg and... well, I've got that many stories. But anyway, I'd got this ground bait, which Andy Seary had given me some, to be fair, and he used to feed somebody's fish on it. So, nobody knows that. But I mixed it up, put a load of ground bait in, boshed it down track. And but 10 minutes before the match, 3 carp rolled on Far Bank. So I thought, I'll put that down track, I'm going over there. So I goes over there, and first hour and a half, I had a couple of bites. Look, Pat's Pool then wasn't solid with fish, but there was some big fish in it. Well, now this catfish set 70 pound in there, but they're not that big. But there were double figure carp in this lake. So I goes across like, has a couple of bites, and I catches a couple of 3-pounders. So halfway through the match, I've only got 2 carp for about £6. And there's an odd carp being caught like. So I thought, I'll go down track. Joe said it's good down. So put 2 maggots on, down track. I goes. Been there. I mean, look, Pat's Pool, you had to sit and wait. you know, I mean, we had caught some carp now, and we're starting to have some tackle, but I'm still using my puller kit, right? And because I was happy, but I used to fish it double now. I used to fish double 8 down it. So I suppose I'm going on towards sort of like 16 laggy. So anyway, it goes down track. 10 minutes, nothing. Quarter of an hour, nothing. I had to blow it, goes under. Clunk, missed it. Bloody hell. I remember to do 2 a day, and you'll understand why in a minute. 2 more maggots, went in again. I'm loose feeding a few maggots on it. Went under, clunk. Oh. Round and round, round. I thought, what the bloody hell was this? And if I looked at it. Anyway, plays it for 10 minutes. Up it comes. It's a catfish. And I've never caught any more, other than what I've caught on that day. I've never caught another. Oh, I tell a lie, I've caught a few little tiny ones. But this was for about £5. So I seen it under water. I thought, what the hell's that? Comes up, internet light, slimy as out there, big whiskers on him. And bloke next to me says, bloody hell, you've caught only one in here. He says, I saw them stock it when they did this. And I seen that one go in like. So anyway, unhooks it like, sticks it in neck like, puts 2 more maggots in, went in again. Next jump, whoosh, clump, I said, I've got news for you, buddy, this more than one. Anyway, I catches 5 for £35. And then I think I went just under 4 to a meal, the 2 carp I caught over there. And at that time, look, the older lads who used to go to Whiteacres will know. Rich Evans here, Simon will probably know. I mean, we've been going to Whiteacres a long time. I walked in club that night, and it was just the club then, and there'd be a comedian and all that on after fishing. I walked in club, meow, all the way across. Everybody in the bloody place was shouting meow because I've caught these catfish. And anyway, I'd won a few quid. I can't remember. I come 7th in festival or something, I think, as I remember. But when we got home, my phones were Angling Times, Anglers Mail. They all wanted to obviously print it. And Andy had said to me before I left, oh, Colin, look, I shouldn't have put them in. You know, I might be in trouble if you tell anybody. So, although I wanted to tell Angling Times, Anglers Mail, I said, look, you can't print it. I don't want to get Andy into trouble. And obviously, look, in the days, to go in Angling Times, it was what you're aiming for, obviously. Any news is good news, you know what I mean? But I couldn't learn print it, I'm afraid. So, although everybody who went to Whiteacres knew, a lot didn't, I'm afraid. So what we got here, Terry Hill, can you remember the Belingi Festival when Tony Greaves took the blades out of your electric razor? Can you bloody swines? And they didn't tell me. And I'm having a shave for 3 days before I thought I'm not doing very well here. We were all stopping in some digs, of course, like you do. We weren't stopping actually on Whiteacres. Oh no, Belingi Fest, of course it was. We were stopping at a place where you'll know, Terry. You tell me, with roof like that, near. Anyway, it don't really matter, does it? But yeah, that was quite funny, Terry. That was, and as you can see, it's still growing, mate, but it's gone white now, which is very good. Do I still keep pitching? Oh, Mark, you do come up with. Yeah, I'll tell you this one now. I can see it. Mark Price, lovely lad, Mark. He's a good lad, and he's still helping me at Staney. He's asking me if I still keep pigeons. Now, the reason for that story is, as you perhaps know, look, I haven't explained, but as the rivers went rubbish, and I could see it coming, I left Knutsford and I went to Doncaster. The Donny lads, every time I went to because I would in business, and I was census agent now, and so I was going around all shops selling census, etc. Well, and many other things. We sold all sorts, we did, but we were fishing Junction and Staney regularly. And I won a few matches on Steyny, but here and on Junction, well, more on Junction to be fair. But Mark will tell you, squat fishing in the team matches, squat fishing was the #1 method. But Colin, my way of thinking is always, why catch little uns if you can catch big uns? That's the way I've always fished in my life. I like to catch quality fish, and the Junction had got loads of chubbing. Now, they were hard to catch, but I won quite a lot of matches across, you know, on big uns, 200 peggers, some of them with chub. And used to fish waggler across, casters, feeder across, maggot and caster. In fact, I had a really good spell with crush after we'd fished on the Thames. We were catching on crushed emp and caster, and Cookie will remember this probably, because Bluey told me how to fish what they were doing from Worksop, and unfortunately the lads died now, but he told us they were catching a lot of fish, double casters with crushed emp and double caster on hook, sorry, caster and crushed emp in feeder, chucking under trees for chub. Well, when we got back from fishing or practising Thames National, I thought I bet that'd work on Junction, and I won 4 matches before some bugger bloody below me seen me, and he said, what's his name? Used to fish for us. You'll know Mark, big lad who used to fish, chubby, he don't fish now, and you'll tell me and I can say it. You'll know. Anyway, look, forget it. You tell me, Mark, you'll know. And one evening match, I'm just landing chub. He says, "What are you catching on?" And he could see me. I said, "Crushed emp and cast." Crushed emp and cast. But going to what Mark's question was, I always used to fish for chub. Everybody started squat fishing. Anyway, the Junction was fishing really difficult at this time, and I drew a peg above Dennis White. Right now, in the week, I'd been reading one of the French catalogues or wherever, and then somebody had wrote in English in one of these catalogues how the French use pigeon shite, right, for catching roach. So I thought, bloody hell, I bet that might work. What a stupid. Look, we're all fishing, we've tried all sorts. I'm sure I'm not on my own, but I thought that sounds great. It's fishing hard on Junction, I'm going to try that. So, Dad, do you know anybody who's got any pigeons? Yeah, so-and-so's got some pigeons, or he's across road. Oh, that's right, we're a friend of my mum's. She lived across, whoops, I've lost all questions. So I said, do you think he'll let me have some droppings out at pigeon? Yeah, of course he will. So he rung it, you know, I popped round, knocked on the door. Can I have a few droppings out at pigeon? Yeah, come on in. You know, I went down drive light and I got a bucket and I took a bucket, scraped a load of droppings, and I took them back to the shop, right? Put them on my maggot riddles, starts riddling, bloody hell, there was smoke about choking me, flipping all pigeon droppings and dust in it. I thought, oh, this is no bloody good. So I emptied it best I could and went back out like and let it all settle. So what else can I do? So I thought, I'll fill it with water, at least then, and I can fish the... that's what I'll do. So I filled it with water, moshed it like, and then drained it so that all the pigeon shite were in the water, and I thought I'll mix my ground bait with that. And so I'll catch them on squats today, mate. Because of course we're all used to ball it and then loose feed squats over the top. And I did get angry at it a few times, but it weren't my favourite, mate. It weren't my best, to be fair. You know, I've got to hold my hand up and say, as I say, I like catching quality fish. Anyway, I drew above Dennis White, mixed my super mix up, like, you know, balled it in. I couldn't catch it. I caught 2 perch on my feeder and I couldn't catch out on waggler across. A bit of a nasty wind as well. So I'll catch them on my ground. I had £1 last inch section, and it's a super league and all, which I'm sure you all know, team fishing. And I've got towed up, and obviously Mark's never forgot it. And I had to go back to team meeting on Monday. And I think the team still did reasonably well, but I'd been a mass failure that day. One of them days you can't win them all, mate. But what a stupid thing to do without even going to try it. But on the other hand, I met, Mark would not know this, I met one of the lads who used to be in our squad, and Mark would know, I can't remember his name. It was one of the lads who didn't particularly get in team very much. I mean, look, Donny's squad were quite a good squad, a good team. Look, we got some good anglers, and I mean, we never won a medal international, but we come fourth on Thames, and I blanked because I drew. God, there were 9 on us on trot, didn't catch anything in a diabolical bit, but that's another story. But they were a good squad. But I saw him, funnily enough, when I last went to Orcroft, which was a while ago, 6, 7 years ago. And we had a chat, I says, oh, it's great to see you, like, blah, blah, blah. And kept trapped. And I said, where are you fishing? He says, oh, we're going on Junction. I said, oh, bloody, I miss Junction. Like, 'cause I really used to I must admit, I enjoy Junction fishing and Staining. And I know there's solid we fish again now, bream and all sorts. But he said, we're still catching up method you sorted. And I said, what's that? And I sorted this on one at Super Leagues that we had. And Junction were really fishing difficult. And the day before, oh, hang on just a sec, voice is going. We were fishing on Junction on the Super League, and I fiddled my deliveries till I ended up in Donny. And then I thought I'll go and have a couple of hours practice just to see if I can sort out. And I went where you can park behind your peg. I can't remember peg numbers, your lads will know. It would be early hundreds. There's a little road and you can park there and just go up bank. So I parked there, it goes up bank, but I went this side of the bridge, just to the left. And starts fishing. I thought, I've got to get these squats sorted. Anyway, I fishes for an hour, I never had a bite on squat. And I thought, freaking hell, I'm struggling here. What's going off here? Because again, I'm trying to sort the method out that perhaps not suits me the best. And look, anybody of you lot who knows how to fish squats, you have to keep your squats moving, but keep moving your float, moving your bristle up, moving your bristle, and as it settles, they have it. And I'm doing all this lot, and I can't get a bite, lifting and dropping, lifting. I've tried maggots, so starts feeding maggots, puts a maggot on, gets a fish. I thought, oh, a bite. Gets another fish, I can't get a bite. Back on squat. I mean, look, there's only a 3-hour section. And Belly come down and sat behind. Dave Bell now. Me and Dave Bell he were captain and I were vice captain. And I'd just gone back on squat, but I was feeding squats, but fishing a maggot on hook. So I fed squats and we're fishing, feeding fairly heavy with squats like we used to. Because it's deep Junction is. It's 8, 9 foot. And as it settles, plonk, I get one on maggot. I thought, oh, that's alright. Go back on squat. I couldn't get a bite on squat. Puts a maggot back on, drops it in, clunk, gets one on maggot. Gets one on maggot. Gets one on maggot, puts squats on. Can't get one on squats. Starts loose feeding maggot, can't get one on maggot. And basically what they wanted was loose feed maggots, loose feed squats, quite heavy, fish maggot on hook. Right? So in I goes. Belly's saying, put another maggot on, I ends up sort of £3 in half an hour. So we goes up next day, won Super League. I spoke to this lad in Orcroft, this is 20 years after, and he says, we're still catching on your method. Feeding squats heavy, maggot on hook. Now, I don't know if they're still doing Junction, and if they are, but I thought, well, it just shows you, 20 years on, they're still fishing Colin's method. Top and on. Very good. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, nice you're on. Phil Raw, that's it. Chubby Phil Raw. Yeah, what a lad he was, eh? But anyway, Pink Hill, bloody hell, yeah, dead right. That's where I blanked. Oh dear, what a... I'll tell that seeing as I've said story. We'd been fishing. In fact, I will, because I'll tell you how good it was. Well, I think it was still the last national they ever had on Thames. And Mark will tell you, because he used to go down with us. And Donny used to always spend 3 or 4 days on the national venue practicing. And they were all stopping in Oxford, right? But me and my good lady, we stopped at a caravan site just outside Oxford, actually, because I always used to like to, she used to like coming. So I stopped with her. And then at night, we'd go to the pub where they were stopping. They were stopping in a pub somewhere. Can't remember where. But, and then we'd all meet up, have a bit of a talk, you know, where we're going, what we had, how you caught these, you know, catching some bleak and bits and bobs and trying all sorts, right? And our Sheena would have a drink like we was all. So all Donny lads knew her, like, you know. And then we'd decide we were going next day, right? So they said to me, we'll go to Carrot's Ham. So I said, all right, yeah, see you at Carrot's Ham. We made arrangements, see you tomorrow at Carrot's Ham. Okay? So next morning, now any of you lads who know the Thames will know Carrot's Ham's in a funny place. And then we didn't know that. We were just picking a thing off at match length. So anyway, I tried to find this Carrot's Ham. Can't find where it is. Anyway, I sees a bloke walking down the street Sunday. I said, excuse me, look, I'm an angler and I want to fish at Carrot's Ham. Can you help me at all? And he said, no mate, but there's a tackle shop just down there, just out road. So he said, pop down there, I'm sure they'll know, like. So pops down and he says, well, you're not far away actually, but he said, it's a funny place, you have to go onto this farm, down this track, so and so. And he explained to me, like, and he says, you have to park at this farm, and then you have to walk across fields. So I said, all right, fine enough, fair enough. Well, this is before mobile phone time, so we've got no mobiles or anything. So my missus went, we come down, we sat there for a bit, there's nobody here, like, you know. I says, oh, come on, I'm getting my stuff out, come and pick me up at 5 or 6 o'clock or something. So I sets off, I thought they'll find me across this field. So I walked across this field, and again, folks who come from Oxford, if anybody's watching, they'll know Carrot's Ham. It's below Evesham, right? Now Evesham's great fishing, and that's where that stream comes, river comes in or something. They catch them big bream, and there's some big weights in the Evesham. And but Carrot's Ham, there's not a tree in bloody side. We're out walking, you know, another 150 yards that way, and I can't see a tree that way. But on this, it's a big outside bend. Right, so I walked down this outside, you know, I had to walk around for 10 minutes while I'm waiting for it. I thought, well, they're not coming. Oh, bugger it, I'm going to fish. So, on outside of this great big outside bend, there's 4 trees, all together over Hanging River. Now, anybody who used to fish Thames, particularly in old days, would know, if you've got overhanging trees, there's chub there. So I thought, well, I'm on my own, I'm fishing these trees, I'm not going anywhere else. So I plonked basket down, it was a lovely peg. And that just tells you, I was catching on crushed emper caster, double caster. I thought, right, so sets it all up, chucks my caster in, right. Well, didn't get one first couple of chucks, but then, perch, which there's a lot in Thames, as you know, but it's a nice perch, 12 ounce. Plops in net, goes again, perch, 8 ounce, perch, pan, perch, 12 ounce, perch. This goes on for an hour and a half, right? And look, I'm not pulling your leg, every chuck in virtually, a perch, a proper quality perch, no little 4 ounce, 2 ounce things, these are all £half a pound plus. So after about an hour and 3/4 of these perch, I thought, where the bloody hell's these chub? You know what I mean? I must have flipping £15 a perch. Right, and then that's it, blow, it goes again. Boom! I thought, oh, at last it's coming. Great. Chub, £3. Brilliant. £3 chub, that's better. Boom. Here we goes again, another £2, another £3. I catches 15 chub, right? All of them, no bullshitting, £2 littlest, £3, £3.5 biggest. Right now I'm thinking, this is good. It goes under again. I thought, bloody hell, this is a good one. Barbel. Look, I'm not pulling your leg on this. Mark will tell you, because he came to the meeting and I told him that I had a barbel. It must have been £9. I'd never caught a barbel in Trent or anywhere in my life. I were absolutely over the moon, because it were a beautiful fish. Oh, beautiful. I'm absolutely chuffed. Puts it in my net, like, you know. Anyway, as a couple more chub, I thought, oh, I'm going to have a change. I've had enough of this. So I starts loose feeding. In middle, maggots. Gets me waggler rod, right? And I'd put it up. It was set up, but not proper. So I just loose fed for 10 minutes while I set it up, like. Chucks waggler in. And it's going down river like that much out, right? So down it's going down like this. I tipped halfway down, clonk, big roach, 10 ounce. I thought, ooh, I'm into roach, that's a nice like. In again, puts another shot on. So instead of like that, it's gone down to about that, right? Trots it down, clonk, another roach, right? So I puts another shot on and shots it like you would, like that if you like, you know, like that. Good pencil, this, isn't it? So anyway, it goes down the river, goes under, missed it. I thought, oh. Goes down the river, misses it. Goes down the river, got one. Goes down the river, misses it. Goes down the river, I thought, bloody hell, better with no shot on. So I takes a shot off, and I found that on the Thames, that on that national was the method. Stick some float out, and it'd go doing, doing. That's a chub. Or a roach. So I has a few of these roach. Then I ex another chub. £3. £3. I has 15, 17 chub on waggler. Besides all these roach. Look, I'm not kidding you. My net's bulging. And I'm thinking, bloody hell, and I'm about knackered. Kept looking at my watch thinking, bloody hell, I've had enough, I'm knackered. But I'm catching really well. And then all of a sudden, down the length comes the bailiff, right, who's pegging the match out for the national, or the practice for the national. And there's 250, 300 fishing next day, right? And he comes down to me like pegging every, 10, 12 yards or whatever. Hey, up, pal. I says, do you want some ticket money, mate? And he says, yeah, it's £3 or something. I think, where you don't think so. I'm getting me money. He says, you catching up? He says, catching up? I said, I've had the best day of fishing I have ever had in my life. He says, you kidding? I said, I've got a barbel, £9. He says, you're kidding. I said, I'm not. He says, can I have a look? I says, yeah, I'm packing up anyway now, I've had enough. So I put the rod down at back like. I pulled my net out. This guy goes, frickin'! I'm sorry if I swore there, chaps. But flipping heck, he says, what a day, where's this barb? You can't see barb over all these jubbocks here. Anyway, we gets it out like, and he sees it like, and he says, flipping it, what a day you've had. I says, I'm not kidding, absolutely brilliant. So I puts it back like, and we managed just to get the net. I'm not kidding, they're £100 plus, definitely. So we pause them all back, perch, roach, flipping great chub, barbel. I'm not kidding. What a day's fishing. And off I went back, and I seen Ashley, we had his tea light, and then we went to meet lads at Donny lads in Oxford, like, and hey, up here, of course, they're all round table, because that's where they're eating as well. Here he comes, where you been, like, and I said, I've been to bloody Carrot Sam, where were you? And he says, we couldn't find it. He says, we've been to so-and-so. And I says, he caught out. He says, so-and-so's had £6 of bleak, and so-and-so had one chub and what. I said, I've had £100. He says, get lost. I said, I'm kidding you not, I've had £100. And hey, up, Perry's had £100, So, of course, they're all bloody listening to what I've had, etc. So, anyway, we have this team talk, etc. And next day, we get some match. And it's, I don't know where we drew, but a big hall. And, there's hundreds there, like, and I'm walking, and they're all going, oi, somebody's had £100 on carrots and pegs, so. They're all talking, I could hear them, like, And somebody said, hey, up, somebody's had, somebody I knew, like, one of the anglers. And I says, yeah, it was me. He says, You're kidding. I said, I'm not. I said, I've had absolute brilliant day. Like, oh, bloody hell, what a draw, what a draw. Bloke drew it, he had £3 more. I emptied it for him, unfortunately. He just didn't catch anything, which is a crying shame, isn't it? But anyway, I don't know how long we're supposed to talk here. Are we talking? Are we done too much or not enough? I can carry on for hours, mate. What time is it? Let me have a quick look. 4:20. Oh, we've been on for 2.5 hours. Time flies, doesn't it? Our in 150s, Pink Hill. Oh, God. Yeah, going back to Pink Hill, I'd sorted this method out, float this far out, and I thought, I really fancy my chances in National. Really fancies. Doing bag next week, because it was National following week. Well, I didn't do it in bag. Of course, they draw for you and they come back. Colin, you're at Evesham. And I said, oh, I love Evesham. My favourite bloody bit on Thames. As we'd been like, and I'd had a lovely days, not that sort of weight, but I'd had sort of, you know, a big 20. Roach and a few chub and such. But I'd found this waggle like that with a method. You'd get that, you get that, and then when it went like that, it were on. And so gets on bus like, because this were bus times, and off we went to draw. All clambers out at bus like, get stuff on you now as you do. And we had to walk across the road, and if anybody, I don't know if it's different, you had to go through a gate to Down Street, Evesham. So I gets to the gate, bloke, you know, there's a not bailiff, a steward on night. He says, what number are you, pal? I said, I've drawn peg 9. Or, no, it might have been 6, something like that. He said, wrong way, mate. You're across the road up there. I said, oh, I've never been up there. So, well, didn't know any difference. So I starts walking up, still full of confidence like. And eventually the river goes round a bend to my left and narrows up, right, till it was only 16 metres wide, might have been 17, no more. It were pushing through under your feet, still on the bank. The bank, when we got to his pegs, 4 foot off at water, and a grass field. Joe Roberts was next to me, right, 9 yards apart, right, and of course, as I got there, I thought, God, this is bloody rubbish. Who the heck's pegged this? Right, gets plummet on, and chucks it across on Waggler, because we weren't pole fishing then, and come back, slimy green weed all off me plummet. I thought, God almighty, we'll not catch out flipping it. Of course, after there was about 12 pegs in this bend. 1 caught at £2 if I remember, 2 caught about £1 something, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all blanked except for one bloke on about peg 9 or 10, and he'd got one little stick up a weed up far bank and he caught 1 chub, and everybody else were blanked, and we in the National came 4th, 1 point off, and all us lot blanked. I mean, it was disgusting. I absolutely ripped into the steward. And I shouldn't have done, because it weren't his fault. But I said, who the friggin' hell's pegged this? It's disgusting on a National peg. I'm sorry, mate, you know. And afterwards I had to apologise to him, but I was that angry, because it was obvious from the beginning. None of us were going to catch anything. And Joe Roberts will tell you, it were absolute rubbish. We ended up bloody talking to each other. I tried for bleak, I thought, were the only thing I might catch. So I'm flicking 3 pinkies in and going through with a shallow rig and all that lot. Never had a flipping tuck, none of us. Absolute terrible. But there you go. Did you lose feet? Richard, that is a joke. All right, I'll tell you that one. I don't know how long we could go on with this actually, but you're enjoying it, obviously. When we're Richard Evans in old days at Whiteacres, after it first opened, there were me, Richard Evans, Kenny Dawes, his dad, and I'm getting tired, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting all names. And we're Paul Chapman? No, perhaps it might have been, I can't remember. There were 6 of us, and we all stood in, right, on festivals. And we went to Whiteacres 13 years, every spring, every autumn. And I don't know whether they went every time, but I did. And then when Stafford Moor opened, I started going to Stafford Moor because Andy Seary had left, of course. He'd gone from Whiteacres. And I started going to Stafford Moor. But anyway, what he's asking me there, as you know, we all used to go in club at night, have a few pints, have a laugh. Whiteacres is very good for that, isn't it? You have a right laugh. And we all stood in, and then we all saying, oh, bloody hell, I've got to win something because so-and-so's won. Keith Dawes has won, and Kenny Dawes has won, Colin's won a section, and I've got to win. I can remember Rich winning his saying, oh, thank God I've got something to put in pot, you know. Anyway, one of the nights, I was on Pat's pool again, like I've just told you, like the lake I told you, because it were in the festivals. Now, that's the Specimen Lake, and it was pretty well similar, same shape as going to go an island here and an island across there, an island round here, like. And we all used to come out at the club, we'd go in chip shop and go and buy some chips, and then, of course, you go to caravan half bloody sloshed. Eat your chips off to bed and up in the morning ready for the festival. And so, anyway, we'd had some chips, like, and got back to the thing. We were knackered, like, it were late at night, and so there were a few chips left. So next morning when I gets up, like, you know, bleary-eyed, like, a bit like I am now, and we starts, I've started to get my stuff ready, and there's this tray of chips on the side of the sink, what I ain't at, and I thought, specimens, nah, Specimen Lake, they might actually catch on chips, don't they? They catch carp on chips. So Colin decides, I'll chop them up into nice little squares. So I gets knife out, lays them all out, little soldiers, chopped them all up into little pieces, you know, like you would, like your finger end, like, and takes them with me. Anyway, I draws on Pat's ball, a bit shorter where I'd caught these catfish before, so that you're parallel to the long island that went down the middle of the lake. And but I thought, well, I can fish feeder down there, and I'm going to put these chips in some ground bait and some casters and maggots, and I'll ball it in, right? So I put some big handful of these chips in my ground bait, makes 4 or 5 balls, you know, like this. Whistle goes, bosh, 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 right? Of course, they hit bottom. Next minute, yeah, plop, up comes a chip. Yeah, plop. Next minute, I've got about 40 chips sat on the surface. Everybody who can see me is laughing their chops off at because I've got these chips drifting across the lake. I'm not kidding, I felt so embarrassed. But no, we didn't catch anything, Rich. We didn't catch on them, my friend. Oh dear. Trent pin float, strange one never used it. Do you remember? Of course I used to remember. The thing being is, the centre pin, particularly in the old days, was absolutely brilliant for hopping down the rocks, which is what happened when Trent used to come up. We used to fish with centre pin because it ultimately, I mean, we've been talking about holding back earlier in the session.